It's nearly the end of the year already. It's incredible, isn't it? Years just seem to evaporate. I think it's got a lot to do with age, isn't it? Anyway, the good thing about that is that we get to look back on the whisky year that was, and from my wee perspective at least, consider some of the best moments, best producers, best bottlers, and of course, the best bottle of 2024. That and quite a wee bit more. I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whisky folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub, the second last vPub of 2024. Kind of caught up on me a little bit. I wasn't really looking. I thought I was going to be able to get at least one or two more vPubs in December. But no, the way the dates work out, the Thursdays fall when everybody's kind of shut down. Certainly in Scotland, at least on Boxing Day is the 26th, of course. That's a Thursday. And then the 2nd of January, anybody that knows anything about Scotland will know that not a lot gets done on the 2nd of January in Scotland. So yes, I'm looking to take those as breaks now, which means that we've only got this week and next week. That means that next week is the kind of community-focused party thing. I'm going to get some friends in, the Bottle Chasers it's looking like, and we're going to get together and share our festive drams next week. I've got a wee experiment with a new game that we're going to try playing just for fun, just for a wee Christmas special. And we might even be able to get Menno and, well, we'll bully Menno into coming on so that he can bully us with a Menno quiz at the end. It's been a long time since we've had Menno on, so that's the plan for next week. This week, of course, is a wee bit more kind of retrospective, a wee bit more kind of just taking stock of the fact that we're at the end of the year. Looking back on 2024, what did it mean for whiskey? What did it mean for me? What did it mean for the channel? And then kind of just trying to distill, if you pardon the pun, lots of things down to nominating just one or two talking points. Maybe push it to 3, maybe a wee bit more, because it's really difficult. As soon as you look back on the whiskies that you've had, you realise that it's been a fantastic year. There's been a lot of variety. But you also have that challenge of trying to whitter it down to just one or two or three to choose from. And then obviously the challenge of picking at the very end. Anyway, I've committed. I think I'm committed. And I'll be sharing that with you tonight. And I'm kind of going to talk a wee bit more about some other things as well. I'm going to talk about my best moment for 2024. But I'm also going to talk about the things that I'm grateful for. I'm going to talk about also I think the best independent bottler, because they're becoming more and more meaningful to us, I think, as time goes on. And it's challenging times for independent bottlers, at least in the short term. It's looking like it's going to continue like that too. Then I'm going to talk about my favourite producer of 2024. It might be a surprise for a lot of you, maybe not a surprise for some of you. And then my favourite bottle, the whiskey of the year, if you like, for 2024. And we'll go through all of that. But first, before I get into anything tonight, I want to start on a wee kind of contemplative note. The WhiskyTube scene lost one of the OGs this week. We're not exactly sure when. It might have been towards the tail end of last week. But I think a lot of you know a chap called Andy Tavornik. We knew him as Foodquig. The word started to come out a few days ago. It was actually Menno that got in touch with me. He was the first person to message me to let me know that Foodquig had passed away last week. We don't know any details. We don't know any more than that, but we know he was broadcasting right up until last week. So it was obviously quite sudden, and it seems like it was unexpected. From as far back as 2014, I would suggest, I started to watch Foodquig, and when I started this channel in 2017, we became friends. I got to welcome Andy here in 2019, and we got to spend some quality time together at the Glasgow Whisky Club around Glasgow and the pubs, and and even a trip up to Deanston for a distillery visit. And I appreciated him as a friend. Before I knew him as a friend, and I implore any one of you who knows Foodquig or who you don't know Foodquig, you can just search him on YouTube as Foodquig. One of the most laid back, of his own mind and very eccentric, did everything his absolute own way, but peaceful, calm influences. Before I did any content on YouTube, and after I did content on YouTube, I would pour a glass and find a Foodquig review of that glass and sip it alongside him. He helped me find the confidence to vocalize what I was smelling and what I was tasting in whiskey. Not because he made it look easy, because he just made it look so comfortable and natural. And the things that he could draw out the glass, for me, made him one of the best at doing that I ever watched on YouTube. Him just sitting back like nobody's watching, almost like he's speaking to himself, and just addressing a glass of whiskey, was one of my wee pleasures. I want to take a wee minute. We've all got the wee love heart emoji down the side. We've got heart emoji, whiskey heart emoji if you're a barfly, of course. But of course, in the live chat, we've also got the hearts and things. And I want just to spend a minute as we think about Andy, as we think about Foodquig. Andy, you'll be missed. A lot of us will miss you and what you brought to YouTube. Unique content, a unique personality too. We're thinking about you tonight, my friend. Rest in peace, Andy. Rest in peace, buddy. Cheers. Like I say, I recommend all of you to go along and look at Andy's content. Try and find a dram that you have that he's reviewed. Pour a wee dram and sip it along with him. See how you go on with it. You'll find your heart rate slowing. Very calm personality that he was. Okay, I'm going to do what we always do. I'm going to, before I get into all of the looking back to 2024, I'm going to jump into the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Hope you're all doing very, very well. A dram came in from Donner Pass Whiskey already. Hey, rest in peace to our friend Andy Foodquig. Sad to lose him. Absolutely, Tim. I know that you were a watcher. I know that you supported him. It's nice to have you in here, remembering him as well. Thanks, Tim. And Justin Wan is saying, again here just to say hi. MCing my company's annual dinner tomorrow, so I won't be wise to stay up late. We'll catch everything on the replay. P.S. My best of 2024 is the Glasgow Whisky Festival by a country mile. I might make a wee mention of that a bit later, Justin. But if you're picking it up on the replay, welcome back, fella. Thanks for the dram as well. Cheers, Justin. Cheers, Donner Pass Whiskey. Tim, cheers. Sipping a few whiskies backwards and forwards here. Just to make doubly, triply sure that my whiskey of the year is the right choice and that it's deserving. I really think it is. It's an interesting choice. See what you think about it. Kyle Taylor has bought me a dram to say, Roy, thoughts on Waterford and Kentucky Ale declaring bankruptcy this week? Is it about the whole industry, or charging large sums for mediocre product? Yes, all of it, all of it. They're very, very different things, the two. And since I'm not too familiar with Kentucky Ale, I think my thoughts on Waterford, I'm not sure how to address that at all. I think that I want to say that I liked Waterford. I enjoyed a couple of their products. The organic Gaia comes to mind. I've still got some of it down there. The Cuvée I also enjoyed as well. The Coffee, the most recent Cuvée, I didn't get a chance to get my head round yet. But generally speaking, I could see a road ahead for them. But the way that they went about their business was strange to me. Blue bottles, it was all very ostentatious and confusing, and they didn't have a way to easily anchor to them, I think. I think they needed a core range product, and I think they needed a smarter strategy to get their product out there for comparison's sake. Much more smaller tasting packs, selection packs of single farm origins and things like that, rather than big bottles charging pretty high prices. Back in the heady days of COVID, it was easy to sell stuff like that. But even they struggled. I think it was just all too much too soon, and I think that they would have been better to just be a wee bit more calm. But we never know what the situations are. We never know what's behind the scenes. We only see it from the outside. So any opinion I could ever offer would only be from a consumer. I can count on one hand how many bottles of Waterford I bought in 4 years, whereas there are other producers out there that I'm buying that amount in 6 months. So it's just the way that things were for them. I don't think it's the start of a domino effect or anything. But those that were flying a little bit thin, or that are maybe don't have the longer term strategies or the robustness for a longer term strategy, might struggle a wee bit. It's going to be interesting in the years ahead for sure. Hellswid is here saying we're still lurgy ridden. Catch you on the replay. I read that. I hear that both of you are a wee bit poorly tonight, Helen. I hope you and Andy get well very, very soon, and I hope you're back here picking this up on the replay soon as well. Get well soon, Helen and Andy. Cheers to you both. Thanks for dropping in to say hello. Quite a lot of it around, a lot of poorly people out there at the minute. Anyway, as I was saying, let's jump into the chat and see how we're all doing. As usual, I'm looking for orange, so if you type Aquavite, I should be able to get pick up your comments. Arthur is saying, Andy's review of Redbreast 21 convinced me to buy a not so cheap bottle of whiskey. Arthur, it's nice to see you and it's nice to welcome you here. I wonder, how did you get on with it? Did you find the same things that Andy found in the bottle? Nice picks and thanks a lot, Roy, says Greg's Whiskey Guide. Thank you, Greg. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Well done, Aquavite. Thanks for this moment. Thank you, Petehead, as well. Thank you very much. I wonder just how much of an overlap there were between our communities. I suspect more than I might imagine. Dan, DVDW, is in here. Good to see you, Dan. How are you keeping? Jimmy Jazz is saying, nice reminiscence. Thank you very much, Jimmy. It's nice to see you, and fella. I hope you're keeping well. Arnie Tiger is here. I think that 2024 has gone by so fast. Lucky that we had vPubs as a reliable marker of time. With the wee occasional breaks in there as well as the imminent break that's coming up after next week, right? Thanks, Arnie. And Malt Brother Ray saying, hi, Roy. My best moments of 2024 was the release of the first Malt Brothers Club bottling. It's a 4-year-old teaspooned Ardbeg finished in a red port quarter cask. That's something to celebrate, buddy. It really is. Malt Brothers releasing Malt Brothers Ardbeg. Gav's Rams here. Good to see you, Gav. Always terrific to welcome you in, buddy. Hope you're keeping well. He's saying good evening, Roy. And Kyle Taylor is I just caught that, didn't I, Kyle? Thank you very much. Thank you for your dram. I hope I thanked you at the time. And Graham Fraser is saying evening, Roy. You missed a great Glasgow Whisky Club North Star tasting on Tuesday, mate. I know that I did. I knew that I was missing something that was good. I just have to pick my battles, and things conspired on Tuesday night that meant the Whisky Club was something I just had to miss out on. It's very rare that I pull out of a Whisky Club night, and it was a wee shame. Graham Young is saying, cheers, Roy. Always love Foodquig's nosing notes. Amazing. Rest in peace, Andreas. Absolutely, Graham. Me too. I'm glad we both enjoyed that about him. Stevie was saying, great to join all these fellow barflies tonight. Can't stay up late as I'm early to take the wife to Edinburgh for 3 nights on an early train. Managed to get a Leith tour with her planned too. Fantastic. Indoctrinating your wife into things too. I hope she enjoys it and hope you enjoy it too, fella. I hope you have a great weekend in the capital. Tom Ferreni is saying evening. Good to see you, Tom. Evening. I hope you're all doing well. We are, Tom. I think we're all doing great, and it's good to welcome you in. And Jimmy Legas here, Aquavitae. No need to address companies going out of business. It happens in all industries, and has happened plenty in whiskey before now. It means little, certainly from the perspective of us as a enthusiast, whiskey drinkers, whiskey lovers. But it does mean that there's not going to be that product going forward. But when we've got so much other choice, I hear what you're saying. But we're also going to have to be mindful that there were jobs, and we always feel a wee bit bad about the whisky industry is quite incestuous. Hopefully that people all have connected and got to know people, and those that want to stay in whisky might find a route of some other employment somewhere else. But you're kind of mindful of how many people are suddenly unemployed at this time of year, you know. Arthur is saying Andy's Chemist review, I think, was Lefroy when he was splitting it with his girlfriend and she was leaving his house in the middle of his recording of the review. Loved the man. Yeah, it was amazing how Cammy was during that. That was, of course, the video that went viral, right? It just caught him and everyone by surprise. Very poignant video, actually. Saver is saying volume is very low. Is it now? Is it now? Is that same thing happening again, buddy? Good to see you in, all the way from Iceland. Keith Duncan is saying 100% agree in Waterford. A few retailers said to me they simply couldn't shift it from their shelves. I hope they survived, as I liked their approach. Well, they had approached to make the best whiskey they possibly could. That was a good thing. The problem came when they were trying to sell it and the way they went about selling it, I think. Just at a jump here, so I hope I'm catching it at the right point. Chris Banks Wildlife is saying, hi Roy, how things to be changing. One of my local whisky shops emailed me to say that they had bottles of Daft Mill in stock for a good few days now, and I've got one in my cupboard. There was Daft Mill in stock the last time I was at the Good Spirits Company as well. £105 a bottle. I think that there's enough of it out there now. The people that were able to get it and then buy a backup, they're probably hoarding it a little bit. And now that it's kind of sitting on the shelves, will that change the pricing in any way? I'm not sure. We have to remember that when we talk about pricing for scarce whiskey, they're scarce and they're scarce. I mean, think of the Thompson brothers, £90 for a 50 cl, but they fill, 50 or 60 casks a year? Maybe not even that. Daft Mill, 80, 100 casks a year. So when we talk about really, really scarce liquid, the problem I have with pricing is when things are contrived or things are oversold, things are sold as if they're scarce, but they're not that scarce. And I think we need to work very hard to call it out and walk away from it. We're going to touch on some of that tonight, actually. I'm going to spend a wee bit of time talking about the wooden spoons of the year, the slip-ups, the silly things. Road to Dram Alberto's here. Good to see you, buddy. Good evening, Roy. He's saying, I'll miss next Thursday for my work, so wishing you a Merry Christmas and a great start to 2025. Merry Christmas to you too, Alberto. I'm sorry you won't pick it up live, but it should be a good fun session. So I hope you pick it up on the replays. You're recovering from your works night out. It sounds like that's what it is anyway. Rick Johnson is here. Good afternoon from San Francisco. Roy and fellow barflies. I missed last week, but it's good to be back here and at the bar with you lovely folks, and it's always nice to welcome you here, Rick, as well. And George L. in Arizona is saying, cheers, Roy, from a sunny Arizona. Hoping you're very well and over your cold. Still the throat thing, unfortunately. You can hear it in my voice still. It's going to take a wee while to sort itself out, I think. But I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling absolutely fine, and it's nice to have you in, George. My brother Ray saying, hi Roy, my best whiskey moment of 2024 was the release of the... See, I picked that up. Did you mention that twice, or is that chat just jumped all the way up? Sorry, Ray. Tommy Simpson is saying, and the Loaded Dice. That sounds like a band, doesn't it? Tommy Simpson and the Loaded Dice. Aquavitae Whiskey of the Year for 2024 for me is Balcones Cataleja. I've not even heard of that one, Tommy, let alone try it. Texas Whiskey Balcones, of course. And Tim Pells is saying, evening, Roy Aquavitae, best dram of Glasgow Whisky Festival. For me, it was actually the Fragrant Drops Grain. I think it was an Invergordon, but it's fading from my memory now. And I was silly, I didn't pick up a bottle of it. Whiskey with Molly saying, good evening, Aquavitae and good whiskey folk. Good to see you in, Ben. Nice to have you here, as always. And Lowlander is saying, I like the Christmas decorations. Sorry, this is the kind of meagre, silly little effort that I've put a string of lights, I've put the Santa back up sitting on a bottle, and I put a wee bit of tinsel round the compass, right? That's about all you're getting. Maybe I'll look out that Christmas polo shirt, if I can find it even, that I wore last year for next week. It's not kind of bah humbug Scrooge, it's just, I think I've got plenty decorations in the backdrop of the vPub. But yeah, we had to make a wee effort, Lowlander. Nice to have you in. Okay, terrific stuff. David Hong's bought me a wee dram. Thank you very much, David, for a generous dram, actually. Yeah, you never make a comment, buddy, but I always appreciate your generosity. And I'll raise a wee glass for you, David, and say thank you very much. Cheers. And my pal from France, Martin Logan, is in, signing up and joining the Aquavitae Barflies. Thank you for your support, Martin. You and the rest of the Barflies that press that join button underneath the video, keep the content ad-free. You don't need to sit through ads, thanks to the Barflies. My real support comes from you and people like you who step forward to support me in Patreon. When you support me through Patreon, YouTube doesn't take half of the funds as they would with advertising or any other monetary package that they put together. Of course, the reciprocal side of that is that what they earn from advertising, for those who choose to do the advertising, which of course I don't, YouTube pay us half as well. So to be fair. Ron Gergley is here. I met Ron this year. Fantastic. He's saying, Aquavitae best malt in 2024 was my trip to Scotland, visiting 8 different distilleries and of course meeting the Barflies. But the biggest moment were meeting Roy and Ralphie. Cheers. Yeah, I remember meeting you in the pot still first, Ron. You and you're a good lady. And I remember meeting you in the Bonaccord a wee bit later as well. You were a very happy chappy. It was wonderful to welcome you here. And I just turn that around a wee bit because I see that is more than off-putting. There we go. Sorry, Ron. And I hope to be able to welcome you back here again. All right, let's get on with things because I've got quite a few things to talk about tonight. I want to start kind of being a wee bit grateful. Can I say that? Can I just, almost like it's Thanksgiving, right? I've selected 3 things that I want to be grateful for. Things that I figure that this was a good year for me personally, from my personal perspective, the projects that I'm involved in and the way that, you know, we kind of, things develop. The first thing to say is that there are new YouTube channels coming on all the time and they're doing fantastic stuff. And the ones that are doing really well will grow, and they'll grow very fast, and people will be attracted to their content and what they have to say and share. So YouTube is still in a sense growing, but the community isn't growing the way it once did. And I think that it's incumbent upon us all, hence why some of the content recently in the vPub, to help grow that community, to keep it fortified with good people, make it as welcoming as possible, and kind of everybody just kind of keep the new blood coming in to keep things healthy and strong for the future, and teach people how positive a thing the whiskey community is and how it's so much more about flavour and tasting rather than drinking. I think I've done that to death in recent weeks, but please forgive me if I continue to do it to death into 2025. I'm appreciative of the growing community, the growing content creators that there are out there, bringing fantastic stuff. But I'm also super appreciative to the growth and the fortified nature of our community. I'm grateful to all of you. I've been looking recently, there's a name just to prove my point. Whiskey Throttle has just dropped in. That's Daniel from Canada. Now Daniel, as far as I can recall, has been here from the very beginning of this channel. So we've got people that are in the last few weeks. Maybe this is your first time tuning into the vPub this very night. I hope it's a decent experience for you. And everywhere in between. Whiskey is there for when we want to enjoy it and consume it, and when our life gets distracted with other things, or we're too busy, or we're just not in the mood, it'll gladly take its leave. We will all take our leave. But when you decide that you want to come back again, or you want to step in and say hello for the first time, we're here to welcome you. That spirit has never left. It's only become stronger. So here's what I want to talk about. When I talk about my community, there was lots of nerves, especially when we hit 2020 and COVID, that the nice kind of vibe that we had, the community spirit that we had, the positivity, that as the channel grew and the vPub grew, instead of getting in 150 or 200 people in watching, suddenly it got to the point that it was 250, 300, even some nights 400 and beyond in the vPub, during COVID years especially. Everybody was nervous that it would lose the feeling, that it would become a bit too big. And I did, if I can confess to you, I had some nerves myself about that. Not about the live stream, not about the vPub, or even my ability to get to know you through the vPub at that scale. It was not a fear for me at all. But translating our community into real life events, post-COVID, I had nerves about that. I can't upscale the in-live real events to accommodate 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount of people. But what I can do is add extra events. What I can do is make it so that you don't need to have FOMO over missing a particular weekend, an event, or whatever it is. In the last 2 years, not only have we added extra things around the weekends that we're doing, the festival turned into adding the blind tasting on the Sunday, and then this year we did the pre-tasting, the under the table tasting on the Friday, made a weekend of it. But what's happened in recent years is we've started to do this September gathering as well, that started off with Legfest with Jimmy coming across, of course, in 2023 for the first time. So we're getting more and more events there. And these are not designed, it's not a plan, there's not a roadmap in place for this. They're quite organic things, they just naturally happen and take care of themselves. This year at the Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend, we managed to cater for 60 people on the Friday, over 100 people doing the buses and the food and things and heading off in different directions on the Saturday night, and then 60 people plus on the Sunday too. So that was a lot. There were seats there for people to get involved in the community. And it was, I'll talk a wee bit more about it later, because it was fabulous. It really was fabulous, and it made me realise that I don't need to be anxious about these things. I just need to do the best I can as earnestly and honestly as possible. And the people will take care of it. The community will take care of itself. I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the community that's growing around Dramface. Dramface is separate from Aquaviti, right? It's my project, of course it is, but its lifeblood is a team of over 20 active people at any one point in time. There's more than 30 people being involved in Dramface over, it's almost 3 years. That'll be 3 years in February. And the community that's building there, and I'm not talking about just the writers and the people behind the scenes, I'm talking about the people that are realising that it's also a wee bit of an interactive space. You know, they can leave a voice message on the podcast if they want to. They can certainly leave comments that more often than not will get replied to under each and every daily article. We're starting to recognise the personalities in those comments, and they're starting to recognise us too. The community is building around Dramface. But more than anything, and I noticed it more than I've ever noticed it before over Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend, people talking about Dramface. The fact that it's become this sentient thing, this place for whisky enthusiasts to go for content that's created by enthusiasts. This is a fascinating thing. If you type in whisky review, wherever you are in the world right now, Dramface is going to pop up near the top. If you're in the UK or Europe, I suggest it's going to pop up top in 9 times out of 10 searches. That's amazing, because we don't pay. That's just an organic thing that's happened there as well. The content is dropping daily, Monday through Friday. Podcasts, newsletters, all supported similar to how this channel is supported through an optional subscription service. Through people that don't sign up because they want to get something, people that sign up because they want the thing to stay. They realise the value, they appreciate it, and they want it to endure. I am very, very thankful for that. I'm thankful to the team of Dramface, and I'm very, very thankful to the people that have stepped up to support it. The last thing I want to say that I'm thankful about in 2024 is new things have happened. New things have come along that I've never been able to touch before. I mean, it's been amazing. Let me grab this. Getting a wee feature, getting to feel part of this thing that's been part of my whisky life over the last 10 years. To be in this Malt Whisky Yearbook now, to have a space for me to share some opinions and things and questions. It's amazing to me to have that privilege. To write the foreword for David Sturck's book, which is sitting across there, David Sturck's Pioneer and Spirits books, looking at new distilleries of the 21st century. For an author to invite me to write a foreword for a book, what a privilege that is. And on the back of that whole scene, that scope, to be invited to participate in the follow-up to the Water of Life film, the Independent Spirits thing, I don't know how or what shape I'm going to take in that thing going forward, but I got to participate in it and I got to share some opinions and things. And through that, we came up with the concept of doing an Independent Spirits Festival in Leith in March next year. I'm very appreciative for that. Look out for a rebranding of that as we draw their branding away from its standalone branding and tie it in closer to so it looks exactly like the film. So when the two things appear in March next year, the premiere of the film, it's not actually a film, it's a 4-part docuseries now. And the festival, they look, and they are, for all intents and purposes, the same thing, born out of the same spirit and endeavour. I'm thankful for all of these things, and I hope as we look forward to 2025 that more of that can be enjoyed next year. What say you? David Evans is celebrating being a barfly for 56 months. David, it's always brilliant to have you here, buddy. Thank you for your support. He's saying, even everyone enjoying Lakes, number 7 this evening. I hope it's gone down well, David, and it's brilliant to have you here. Whiskey Games Matt Bishop is saying the barfly gathering at the Glasgow Whisky Festival were incredible. Community events and were my highlights. Thank you for your energy and your friendship, Roy. Thank you for your friendship too, and your good spirit and your warmth and your everything. And thank you as well, Matthew, for these wee cards, which I hear the Good Spirits Company is constantly having to restock. I don't know if you've still got these available for sale, Matthew, but this is a deck of playing cards that feature the whisky distilleries of Scotland. I suspect with only 52 or so cards in a deck that there's going to have to be a batch 2 at some point, Matthew, when you get the illustrations done. Let's just pick a random card here. Let's just see what distillery we pick out, so we can look at this is Aberlour I've picked, so you can see there's a unique illustration with cool geek stats on every single distillery. These are, I don't know what these are, 12 or 13 pounds or something, Matthew, I'm not sure, but just brilliant stuff. Nice to have you in, nice to have you as part of our community and supporting as well. Love this product, got a wee idea for it next year, and we might get a chance to chat at some point next year. Whiskey Wings, good to see you in, Whiskey Wings. He's also saying it's Mike from HTAM, which is Honest to a Malt, a cracking, laid-back whiskey podcast. Going out almost weekly now, right? He's celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 44 months and saying, great to meet you in person, finally, at the Glasgow Whisky Festival. Didn't feel strange. Had to remind myself as I was meeting you that this was a new thing, that it's the first time I'd met you, Mike. I know you've been around here for a long time, buddy. It's great to see the Honest to Malt podcast going strong. Keep it up. It's fabulous whiskey content. You're making a positive contribution to whiskey. Nice to have you in, bud. Graham Fraser is saying celebrating being a member for 56 months as well. 2024 moment of my 100 distillery tour at my number 100 distillery tour, Ardnahoe. He's choosing that as his highlight. Graham Fraser. But he's just not talking about visiting 100 distilleries. He's literally toured 100 distilleries. I'll raise a wee glass to that. We'll be hearing a wee bit about Ardnahoe a wee bit later. I don't think anybody will be surprised to hear that. Cheers, Graham. Dave Shaw is saying Merry Christmas, Roy, and all the barflies. We look forward to more whiskey wisdom in 2025. Well, I hope that I'm able to bring it to you in some shape, Dave Shaw. Good to have you here, buddy. It's good to have you tuning in. And I think you're in Western Australia. I think you're getting together with other people on the west coast of Australia as well. I hope I was able to help a wee bit there. Very generous Dram coming in from Savar in Iceland, saying thanks for a great year. Looking forward to 2025. Savar, that's very, very generous of you, my friend. It's wonderful to have you here. I know there's one or two other listeners in here from Iceland, but we tend, there's only one or two maybe occasionally over the recent times that would comment. But I know that you've been in here, and I know that I pronounce your name terribly, my friends, probably. But you've been here over the years, and it's wonderful to have you in. But that's the things I'm thankful for. Let's pick it right up from, it's almost like you're helping me segue into these things as we talk about moments of 2024. I got to do a lot of things in 2024 again. I always look forward to at least one trip to Germany, whether it's Frankfurt for Inter Whisky or Limburg. And there's talk about Nuremberg as well for next year. There's talk about maybe going to another festival, one of the festivals in Belgium or the Netherlands or something. There's kind of lots of things happening. So for me, it's always just kind of a case of look what's available, choose one, commit to it, and do that. Limburg was fantastic in 2024. Amazing, like it always is. I want to talk about the privilege of taking a trip with Sevi earlier this year. It's going to be my runner-up to my favourite moment of the year. Whatever opportunity you get to get together in a real-life space, I don't care how shy you are or how socially anxious you might be. I don't care how comfortable and confident you are, or how expert you are at whiskey, or whatever it may be, or feeling very comfortable in a space. I would like to think that when we get together, we're able to make a space that's comfortable for everyone. And I think that I get the impression from my perspective, and I know that sometimes it can be tainted, and I think we always need to try and keep an eye out to make sure everyone's feeling okay and that they're all seen. But my tainted perception is that, wow, this feels great, this feels fantastic, and it looks like everyone's having a nice time. And the gathering this year, that was absolutely the feeling. It was wonderful to see all of these faces that had travelled internationally for that weekend, a very informal weekend in September. It was just fantastic. I would love to travel to the States again in the future. I would love to travel to Europe again in the future. But there's no fixed plans in place, and I suspect that when I do make plans, it's going to be with just a few weeks' notice instead of months' notice. But wherever I end up, I'll have the opportunity to meet new people, and I would love it to be every bit as good as Limburg's been to me over the last couple of years. Follow-up for my whisky event of the year, though, was April. It's kind of interesting how you're not aware of things at the time, but when you look back at the benefit of hindsight, a bit of retrospection, you realise, I was suffering from a bit of whisky fatigue back then. And Sevi and I hopped into the car in April and went up to do a vPub live on location from Dornoch Distillery with Phil and Simon Thompson of the Thompson brothers. It's the first time I'd been to Dornoch Castle. It's the first time I'd been up there, that side of the country, for a whisky purpose. And we managed to drive up one day, do the vPub, do the live, spend a bit of time, relax for a bit, and come back the next day. It was a very short visit, but I'll never forget how energising it was. The new outlook, the fresh perspectives, the attitude of the company that is the Thompson brothers, themselves, the team that they're building there, their ideas for the future, their creativity, their innovation, their fun about whisky. I hope they never lose that. It was invigorating for me. Spending the time in the car with Sevi, we just don't get enough time to just hang out with each other, and any time that we do, it's kind of much busier, bigger events, club nights and festivals or whatever it may be. It was super valuable. And for mental health, it was essential. I think it's also potentially another positive side to our community that friendships are being struck all over the planet at any one given time. Dave Shaw's in here tonight. I know that there's a connection happening there in Western Australia right now. New friends through the channel are hooking up and saying, hey, I'm here too. Why don't we get together? It's happened in Portugal. It's happened all over the UK, the British Isles, all over the States and Canada, Asia, everywhere. We're hearing about these people connecting up through whisky, through the content. It's fabulous. And I hope it's good for all of your health too. I think as we consume an ethanol, a poison, we're always mindful of the concerns for our health. But I think we need to positively recognise what the community and this connection is bringing us to. So my runner-up event for 2024 was that car journey up to Dornoch with Sevi. It was fabulous. But my event for 2024, the thing that blew me away, fortified my belief in everything that we do and achieve here, was the Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend once more. Specifically, if you'll indulge me, specifically, the moment was a brand new thing this year. We've started to build the weekend out. There's usually something happening after the festival. We've got a bus on. We're all going to go for a curry together and things like that. 103 of us or something eating curry together. And because we pre-selected a menu and did things a bit slick, much more slick this year, everything went smoothly. The food was great. Checking around the tables, everybody seemed sated and happy. But the event that really surprised me was the Friday. George Square, Glasgow city centre. We go to the Piper Bar. We rent the upstairs room. We fill it with 60 barflies, and then we go to producers and say, hey, we're here. Would you like to bring a bottle and share it with us before the festival? Every single invited producer that I invited said yes immediately. And these were the who's who of the producers. It was Decadent Drinks. It was Springbank. It was Cadenheads, Ardnahoe, Glencadam, White Peak, Loch Lomond. Though exactly the producers I wanted to have in that room all said yes. Every single person in the room enjoyed themselves, as far as I'm aware. But more than that, every producer said, that was a good event. We should do this again. So in the quiet moments when I was just kind of sitting there and looking at the room, especially in the quieter moments where everybody's contemplating the whiskey, I was mindful of the fact that we've created a new thing. There's scope for these things just to happen. A year ago, this was not on my radar at all, an event like this. And it went very, very well. I hope, despite the fact that it's always going to be limited numbers, it's always going to be limited, and I have to prioritise patrons first. It's the only way I can physically manage these things. I hope that in the future you're able to come along and experience it and enjoy it with us. It was fabulous. So my moment of 2024, and for those of you that were there and for those of you that heard about it, you'd know why, was that under the table tasting. As chaotic and manic and busy as it was, fabulous whiskies. What a structured, wonderful, welcoming, I hope, way to kick off the Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend. Thanks to the producers that supported it, and thanks to all of you who made it too, for all of the festival weekend. As I go through these wee whiskies, I am not just convinced that my Whisky of the Year pick is the right one. Sip by sip, I'm being reassured. It's very, very good. Alistair McPhail is saying, hello Aquavita and everyone. I loved the under table tasting. It was special. Thank you for organising it. Brilliant to have you participating in it, Alistair. Glad you enjoyed it. And Matt Bishop is saying that Friday was such a fantastic window into the world of the industry representatives and the fact they were also one big community too. That's right. And they're speaking to each other and they're saying, wow, you're doing this. Tell me about this. And I remember Michael getting asked about his Chardonnay yeast experiments. I remember the Petio experiment from White Peak that they shared with us. Tom was getting asked questions about that. So you've got nice kind of symbiosis happening as well. Has Michael Henry ever said no to anyone? I'm sure he does. But I think he likes us, Jimmy. Highland Hamish is saying, Friday tea time at the Piper was indeed tremendous, and glad to have supplied your caffeine stop at the Dornoch escapade. That's right, Hamish, we met you on the way up there for a wee charge of caffeine. Pleasure it was too. Ian Bruce is saying, moment of 2024, receiving two great gifts, days apart from fellow barflies across Australia. The best event was the TWL in Perth. That must be the Whisky Live. Perth. Best Dram Blackwoods Rye SCN Single Cask Nation, that would be release. Best malts and those Aussie New Zealand samples. Sounds like you've had a good year as well, Ian. Good to have you participating with us too. Harrow Whisky Weekend Drama saying my whisky moment of the year was the day we visited Campbelltown. Did a Kilkerran and Springbank tour and the Cadenhead Warehouse tasting. After that, invited by locals for amazing drams. Brilliant. It's great when you get the locals invite too as well, Harrow. And Sachin Kent is here. Sachin, so good to see you, buddy. How are you keeping? I'm hoping to get involved in more events in 2025. Like I said, it's the head of this thing. If you can, great. We'll see you there. If you cannae, we'll see you the next time. It's here for when it suits you. Blair is saying, still gutted to have missed the Friday this year. Hopefully next year. Stay tuned, buddy. Good to have you. And how's Annie doing? Still hanging on? How are things? Doodle the Dramarnie is here. My moment of the year was when I nervously walked into the gathering, only to feel immediately welcome with open arms by people I've never met. I'm still struck by the joy of community. And because you enjoy it and you appreciate it and you've felt the positivity from it, you'll be the next guy to welcome in the next new person, right? That's how we have to keep it going. And you're an example, Arnie, of the kind of new blood that I'm talking about. Great to have you. Pierre is saying best of 2024 is this community and the things that has brought us together. And there's Frank, who's been around it for as long as I can remember, buddy. First, Phil is here, hey all, listening in the background, not sure for how long, but good to listen along. Phil, I know it's early morning for you, and I owe you a chat. That's terrible, I've let that drop. Big, huge, you're witnessing in real time a big pang of guilt. Let's have a wee chat next week, buddy, if you can, if you're up for it. Whiskey Throttle Daniel is here, and he's saying it's very special to hear you speak with a love and kindness about your passion for this subject and the ones you've shared it with. Thank you, Daniel. You are included in that. The Canadian John Wayne. I hope you're keeping well. Whiskey with Molly Ben is saying it was sensible. I was sensible at the end of the table, left when it finished and went to meet the HTAM boys, HTM boys for one Guinness before, is that the Hallions then? Before heading home. Stayed for 2 stacks and a 6-dram tasting. That's what happens, you know better. But you were also sensible on a Saturday and you were sensible on a Sunday too, Ben. So you did well over the weekend. Road to Dram is saying the whole Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend was fantastic. Meeting everyone just confirmed what a great community you've managed to pull together with the help of people like you, Alberto. Great to have you in. And Alan, the Whisky consigliere. Alan, I think you're Alan from Tobermory, right? Few moments of the year for me. Working at Tobermory Distillery, there you go this summer. Meeting you, Roy, and travelling and evangelising about whisky and so many whisky distillery visits this year. Good for you, Buzzy. It was a pleasure to meet you. I don't know if that bottle that I picked up while I was there it's not within reach, but I'm nervous that it's already half gone. It's been good down a treat. Fantastic recommendation, and I don't feel guilty, Alan, for treating myself. Thank you for the offer. Thank you for dropping in and saying hello tonight, buddy. All right, let's clip on. Let's move into Best Bottler of 2024. Why have I added this? I've added this because we are naturally moving in that direction as a community. We're very, very experienced now, and even if the people who can't get their hands on independent bottling so easily, they're starting to buy at auction and feel a bit more confident about buying at auction. They're starting to pick up independent bottlers when they travel and things like that, and they're feeling a little less apprehensive about what an independent bottler is and why we should engage with them. An independent bottler, just for anybody watching, is anybody that buys stock that's made by somebody else. Maybe they mature it, maybe they'll keep it, maybe they'll just simply bottle it, maybe they'll blend it, maybe they'll batch it up, do all sorts of things with it, get creative as they want. But independent bottlers often tend to be people who bottle whiskey that they've not made. So their whiskey can end up alongside the official releases, and some people say, well, why should I buy something from these guys? I don't know who these people are. They tend to be whiskey passionate, they tend to be very whiskey knowledgeable, and they tend to often put pretty good quality product out there, naturally presented as well. I have to confess that if I wasn't doing the channel, 90% of my collection could potentially be independent bottlers, certainly more than 50%. But because of what I do and trying to reach and relate to everybody right across the planet, it inevitably means that a lot of my focus is on the things that the planet can enjoy. It tends to be a lot of distillery bottlings, official core range releases and things like that. But that doesn't mean that I can't recognise the pleasure that's been brought to me year after year after year through various independent bottlers, especially when there's so much to talk about through independent bottlings too. A new name, Arnold Banderas, has just bought me a wee dram from the States. Arnold Banderas, nice to have you in, buddy. You've not made a comment or anything like that, but hey, thank you for your generosity. And I'll raise a wee glass, actually, from this glass, which is going to be my whiskey of the year. I'll share it with you later, as I'll need to top it up. Got a few glasses here clean, waiting. Let's get something into one of them from an independent bottler. What can we talk about? I'm going to talk about, rather than just run in and saying my independent bottler of the year is this, let's attempt to build up to it a wee bit. Let's start with an independent bottler who has come on the scene recently, and let's just acknowledge that they're there. And just the fact that they were even in the running for me to consider them for independent bottler of 2024, I think is worthy. I've started to acquire and accrue quite a few bottles of Little Brown Dog. I like the vibe, I like the attitude. I've got to know, just at least one of the team there a wee bit. And I feel like this is good stuff. This is positive stuff for whiskey. As I've started to explore more of the bottlings more, whether it's a blended malt, this is actually a blended Scotch whisky, so there's grain in here as well, whether it's a blended malt, whether it's their single cask bottlings. The other one I picked off the shelf actually was this one I picked up recently. This is me on my second bottle of this. This went down very, very well with friends, and interestingly with friends who would not normally touch whiskey of this potency. This is a 6-year-old Glasgow, a single cask Oloroso, and it was 50 quid, 49, 50 pounds. Full single cask hogshead, as Oloroso hogshead, 55.7%. As I say, single cask, so full maturation in Oloroso, £50. Just that lovely, lovely overlap between Glasgow Distillery and an ethical, fair, independent bottler. This comes alive when you pour it next to a wee water jug, and all that potency and all that dense, sometimes a wee bit almost slight industrial, kind of dry spiced, heavy kind of cocoa type lick to things, cola cubes. But all the heat and spice just dissipates, and it becomes a soft, kind of much more accessible thing just with a wee teaspoon of water. It was wonderful. What a treat to have, and what a really nice thing to have from Glasgow Distillery as well. But this is their blend. So Little Brown Dog was actually in the running for this year, but I think I need to get to know them a bit better, try a few more of their releases and things, but I suspect they're going to continue to do great things. So cheers to the team from the Northeast. Cheers. But of course the big news, the big development in 2024 from independent bottling perspective was a shot in the arm of where we found ourselves at the end of 2023, coming into 2024, where the market seemed sluggish. People were starting to feel a bit of fatigue. People were sitting on their collections. They weren't spending what they were spending during COVID. Meanwhile, more and more and more releases are coming out with higher and higher and higher prices. It's down to market prices, cask prices for independent bottlers, for example, or contrived elevated prices from each new fancy, limited, higher age stated, whatever it was, whatever reason to raise the price came out from distillery core bottlings as well. And I think everyone started to just get a bit tired of it. So we slowed down on the purchasing. That was an easy decision to make because we've got lots of whiskey at home to enjoy. So Signatory Vintage saw that happening in 2023, and with pressure from their retailers, from their agents probably, and with feedback, they came out with a range of products. I've only picked 3, but I've accumulated a lot of these over the course of 2024. I've got batch number 5 here, which is a Ben Nevis 2015, which is an 8-year-old. Batch 25, which is a 13-year-old Speyside, which is Macallan. And Glenord 2012, 11-year-old, which is number 22. So the Macallan's 25, 5 and 22. But just show you these, you know exactly what these bottles look like. But this is Signatory's 100 proof series. Let's just hold it there, you know what they are. I've got a lot of these over there, to the point that they're all sitting at this level here. Not a lot of them have been close to rinsed yet that I can recall. They're just easy things to pick up because they're 100 proof series, 57.1% ABV, small batch ABV right across the range, Might be a wee bit of reduction in there in order to meet that, I don't know. 57.1 100 proof release, 45, 46, 47 pounds, mid-40s for everything, whether it's an 8-year-old Ben Nevis or a 13-year-old Macallan. As I've stated on a previous vPub, when you've got a range like that from Craigellachie, from Glentochers, from Linkwood, from Macallan, from Ben Nevis, from Ardmore, from Highland Park, when you've got all of these coming out at that price, that ABV, why is anyone buying anything else in whiskey right now? Because it takes the value of whiskey and just mops the floor with everything else. Now, let me quickly follow that up with, I have had lots of good bottles from the range. I have yet to have a sparkler. I've yet to have something that's blown me away. I think they're all solid bottling so far. I hope you don't think I'm being a wee bit cruel when I say that none of them have knocked me on my backside yet. But I can reach for any one of them and know that they are beautiful, solid, reliable whiskies that you will feel no disappointment whatsoever when you spend £45 for them. But the problem with that is that not everyone can be signatory vintage. Not everyone has the access to the stock that they have access to, whether it's their own stock or the agreements or the contacts that they have in place, whatever it may be. Not everyone is going to have the buying power. Not everybody's going to have the ability to bring a range like that to market. And there has already been reactions. I noticed that Woodrow's of Edinburgh recently put out a label, a special label, with a little RIP small independent bottler motif on the label, specifically referencing, from my interpretation, 100 proof labelling. They actually called it the 101 proof, but the labelling was very kind of reminiscent of this, and I suspect that it was a way for Woodrow's to just pull into focus for their potential customers, that while they're out there filling their online baskets and they're picking up from the shelves in the bricks and mortar places these more inexpensive 100 proof series from Signatory, they're worried about the smaller bottler who can't get access to the stock that Signatory Vintage have, whether it's through their own incumbent stocks or whether it's through the connections that they have in the industry, and I understand that completely. And there's a suggestion from the Woodrow's label that this is the start of the decline to the bottom, because you could end up with only one or two independent bottlers that's capable of doing such a thing. I can't even see Scotch Malt Whisky Society being able to pull this off, honestly. I don't think they could do it. £45 for teenage whiskey at 57.1%, it's just not happening from anywhere else. But know this. This is a wake-up to the entire industry, that wherever you source your casks from, whatever way that you're getting, they're overpriced. Whiskey is, in 2024, despite the huge writing on the wall, whiskey is still still trying to be oversold. There are people out there that are not playing fair. They have overpromised and they're under-delivering, and they are still overselling whiskey. Things like this are going to need to happen for the values across the whole landscape to calm and correct. The Noble & Co. report came out recently. That was fascinating reading. And it's basically, to summarise it in a single sentence, the secondary market is now undercutting the primary market. It's something I've talked about for years. When the primary market competes with the secondary market, you know that things have gone wrong. When the secondary market is cheaper than the primary market, you know that it's swung back. You know that I'm not talking about calamities and burst bubbles and things like that, but certainly this bubble is not the size that it once was. It's shrunk back down again. That's why we've seen products like this 100 proof series from Signatory. But despite that move, they don't make it to my independent bottler of 2024. My independent bottler of 2024, and you're going to see a lot of overlap over the categories tonight, whether it's the producer, the distiller, the things that I'm talking about, whether it's the individual expression of whiskey, my bottler of 2024 has to be the Thompson brothers. They won Best Bottler at the Oswas. I think they won it quite comfortably. Signatory weren't in the running because of trifecta this year. Thompson brothers, we were surprised. We expected Cadden Heads, we expected any of the other runners to step forward, but it was Thompson brothers that managed it in 2024. They're getting more of our brain space, more of airspace, more of kind of our wallet space. We're not having to queue up and do everything over a ballot now. We're seeing Thompson brothers stock on the retail shelves, depending on where you are, but they're fairly widely distributed. Lots of small batch, single cask, lots of blends. Stock up on this. It's going to be gone one day, and when it's gone, we'll talk about how wonderful it was value-wise. This is the blended TBBSW, £35 and less. Fantastic value. Yeah, this is a similarly priced product as well. There's an even cheaper one available on Amazon right now with a really, really cheeky back label I'm going to try to show you. I read it out last week. I've had a few sips out of this now, but this is... I read it out the label, but if you look at the wee bottom that I forgot to read out to you, see down at the bottom, this specific batch of the Thompson Brothers 8-year-old North Highland, it says batch, come on, focus on that please, Billionaires Bank Balance Top-Up Edition. Obviously because this one was being sold through Amazon, I picked this bottle up at £27. Fantastic. Then they've got really quite expensive stuff, like this 5-year-old Sutherland, which is a mix of Clynelish and Dornoch, their own distillate, which is super, super rare. The fact that they would give any of it up to blend is quite amazing. But that's a more expensive, much more in-demand bottle. That's closer to £70. And that's just what they're doing with blends. If you think about all their single casks, all their small batch bottlings and things that they're doing, everything that they do, Thompson Brothers, it seems to me that it's just become one of these bottlers that you don't need to try before you buy. You don't need a sample swap. You don't need to go to your bricks and mortar retailer and say, do you have any of this open? Because it's got their name on it, because it's got transparency on the label, and because your experience tells you that it can be trusted. And even if it's not going to blow you away, even if it's not your sparkler or whiskey of the year, you know that it's going to be a solid purchase and it's going to help you step forward in your whiskey exploration. For me, best bottler of 2024 has been the Thompson Brothers. It's helped that I've got to know them. It's helped that I've been able to have my feelings for them fortified in the fact that they are fun, creative, innovative, that they are ethical, that they have integrity, and they go about their business almost like they were still enthusiasts. They've not forgotten what it's like to fall for this thing that is whiskey. And they bring their products based on that. I suspect in the future there is more to come from these guys. Remember the distillery that's on its way. So instead of filling just a few casks a year from the tiny micro distillery that is Dornoch, they're going to have a bigger distillery, name yet to be disclosed. And other projects that they'll bring us in 2025 and beyond, I have no doubt will be every bit as integrity forward, ethical and creative as everything that they've brought us up to date. So for the first time, I've given myself the lofty place of nominating an independent bottler of the year. I'm glad that I can raise a wee glass to the team up at Dornoch and say that the Thompson Brothers, in my mind, deserve it. Well done. Cheers. What say you? Arnie is saying, when the latest Aquaviti, when the latest set hit the Good Spirits Co, I was straight there to pick up the Mortlach. For me, they are an amazing way to discover whiskies. And you know the prices are going to be in check as well. I don't know if you're talking about Thompson Brothers or if you're talking about Mortlach, it could be that you're talking about Signatory 100 proof. That's what you're talking about. Jimmy Legacy, whiskey's an oil tanker. It turns slowly, Aquaviti. It really does. The bigger companies turn slowly. And the bigger thing, whiskey, that is whiskey itself, turns slowly. But there's lots of kind of little movements happening, Jimmy, that's kind of, if you see in those and you pay attention to the minutiae, the detail, it gives you a sense of where it could actually be turning before you even get any perception yourself. Whiskey Throttle is saying, The Who, I'm so out of the loop. Wait, I know you've been away a wee while, Daniel, but Thompson Brothers, we should chat about it one day. They're doing great things. You see a bottling. In the US, they have to call themselves the Redacted Brothers because someone else is marketing under the Thompson Brothers or something, I don't know. But in Canada, I'm pretty sure, especially if you still have access to the Alberta market, Daniel, you should be able to get your hands on some nice Thompson Brother bottlings. Anthony's saying, I opted for 2 Thompson Brothers bottles after hearing reviews in the vPub. Living up to the value and taste so far. Very happy. You know, one of the whiskies in the running, but I'm out of it. I don't have any here, was the Circumstance Thompson Brothers bottling this year. That's probably my most notable whiskey of the year. I can't put it in to nominate it for my whiskey of the year for a couple of reasons, not least of which is the fact I no longer have any. My last 2 bottles of it was shared at the blind tasting on the Sunday in Glasgow Whisky Festival weekend. That took care of 2 bottles from it. I think I bought 4 or 5 bottles from Highland Hamish's shop up there in Inverness. I bought a couple of bottles from Here, There and Everywhere for my own personal sharing. And I often, what I would do is somebody would be so struck by that Circumstance 3-year-old that I would give them whatever was left in the bottle to take away with them. So I'm left without, but whiskey finds you. So if I want to get my hands on some more of that Circumstance in 2025, I'll probably be able to do it. But I suspect what will happen is that something else will come along just as remarkable as that one. And good to have you in, Anthony McGee. Glad you're here and glad you're enjoying the Thompson Brothers. Highland Hamish is saying, Roy, you somehow need to get yourself this small but perfectly formed Dornoch Whisky Festival in late October. Every year it's happened. I think it's happened a couple of years now. The last couple of years I've looked and thought, oh, that would be good fun. Whiskey Wings Mike is saying, the Diageo discounts towards sensible pricing continue daily. You know, I was a sucker again. I shared in the Cast Strength vPub last week that I picked up the 12-year-old for 50 quid, Lagavulin 12-year-old. And now somebody had sent the link again yesterday or Tuesday it maybe was, saying, Roy, that Talisker is 50 quid again on... And I went, okay. And I dropped another 50 quid. Probably 50 quid that would have been better going not on Amazon, on somebody a bit more ethical, a bit more closer to home. But, you know, when it's there, it's there. We're all suckers for it, and our money only goes so far. My pal Gordon Fraser is in celebrating being a barfly for 34 months. How can it be that already? Busy week is saying parachuting early, but slant you all. Gordon, thank you so much, buddy. Thanks for participating tonight. Thanks for your support as well, my friend. And George P is saying, Aquaviti will has to catch the rest on replay. Highlight for me in 2024, discovering this amazing community. It's a privilege and a gift to be a tiny part of it. Thanks for bringing us all together. Just the mere fact that you're enjoying it fills the sails with winds of confidence. George, thank you very much. And Daniel's saying, can I order it? Does anyone ship to Canada? A lot seem to say they do not ship here anymore, which is a silly thing for us that live in the Alberta province. I'm not sure, buddy, but I know what you're like. You're a resourceful fellow. If you want it, you can get hold of it. Doodle the Drama is saying, I also started to really enjoy WOTY whiskey. Everything I had from them so far is quite unique flavour, that front loading and surprising. Well, because you're buying it from somebody like Mark Watt and Kate Watt, people that know what they're doing. Two of the most passionate whiskey people and really quite pleasant people to hang around with and have fun with. It makes it easy. I suspect that there's a lot of that personality going on at WOTY Whiskey, at Little Brown Dog, at Thompson Brothers, at all of these kind of passion-driven things. And I know that it's kind of quite romantic to talk like that, but when you sense it and then you taste it, and when you hand over your money, you feel part of it, you believe it. And it doesn't last forever. We have to believe it while it's there. Do you know how great the people here are? I've been to Scotland twice since 2023, says Jimmy Legg. And I've been drinking primarily only samples ever since. It's the generosity of it all. But it's also a measure of your parsimonious, contemplative, healthy drinking and nosing style, Jimmy Legg. Thanks for the dram, buddy. Thanks. Brian Storm is saying, you look very festive. In my house, as Mrs. has put tinsel along the bottom of the TV. So, all I've done is put up some fairy lights, put a Santa on a bottle and strung a bit of tinsel around the compass, which isn't even stuck on this year, so I'm pretty... In fact, I don't think it was stuck on last year either. So at any moment, a wee draft could take that tinsel off and it could end up on the floor. that was the extent of my efforts, Brian. So I'm glad that your missus has done a decent job to help us get into the mood. All right, let's go. 2 more categories to cover tonight. Producer of 2024. Now, I did have a producer of 2023, and it was, of course, I tend to put it on a shelf here in the backdrop, and you can see here it's been a wee bit decimated over the months since I nominated them producer of the year, but it's because I love the stuff. Coquerin was my producer of the year in 2023. It was easy. It's just easy. You know, I know that a lot of us struggle to get hold of the Campbelltown whiskies, but we've got Glen Scotia there. We tend to have Glengyle, Coquerin there. We can struggle with the Springbank, Hazelburns and Longrow. Coquerin for me outperforms Springbank. You will have no argument from anyone that while Springbank experiences are up and down like this, up and down, it tends not to be about quality. It tends to be up and down in terms of variety. Whether it's Hazelburn, Springbank or Longrow, because of the cask variety, because of the playfulness that they put it out there at, you can get things that blow you away, that really make you close to weeping, and they can get other things that you just think, well, this is too much, or it's too little, because they are so all over the place, the Springbank releases. Coquerin tends to be a bit tighter, a bit closer, a bit truer to the main the spirit. Now, of course, they have sherry casking, bourbon casking, really quite extreme releases with the cask strength. But generally speaking, it's a tidier, neater, more balanced prospect. The 12-year-old is fabulous stuff and great value, and much, much easier to get your hands upon than anything from Springbank. And the 16-year-old for me is the pinnacle. It's just fantastic, gorgeous whiskey. I absolutely adore it. I buy it on site every year. Every time there's a 16-year-old that drops, and every time I see a wee 12-year-old sitting on the shelf, chances are I'm going to pick that up as well. It's easy to enjoy and drink. But where do I go in 2024 when you've got something like that to follow up on? Well, there's a theme in my producers for this year, and it's strange for me to look at these producers and think, really? All of them are new. I'm only going to talk to you about 3, but the other ones that were on the list were also new producers. That was not intentional. I didn't sit down here and decide my producers that I'm going to think about for 2024 are going to be new distilleries. I didn't make that decision, not consciously. But I've been drawn to brands that are new on the scene. I've been drawn to brands that I did not know about when I got into whiskey in 2005. I've been drawn to brands that I didn't know about when I started this channel in 2017. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let me take you through them. Let me try to justify it. Sachin is saying, the Coquerin 12 is so good that even though I don't ever buy the same bottle of whiskey twice, I make an exception for this. You and I agree, Sachin, don't we? It's just fantastic. But that was last year's offering. Whiskey Wings Mike is saying, early days, but it's Ardnahoe for me. The Society releases my Whiskey of the Year 2024, and it's their 3rd release. What a good sign, eh? And Jimmy Legacy and Coquerin, if you're going to be honest, will be your producer of the year forever. I can be honest with you, Jimmy. But I think I need to bring, for the sake of representing what's actually happening in whiskey, rather than just me talking about me sitting in here and wanting to drink one producer most of the time. Chris Dunn is saying, I bought a bottle of the Circumstance 3-year-old from Simon when I was in Dornoch with Steve Atkiss in March. A beautiful thing that lasted less than a month. What a thing. Chris, I'm so glad that you picked it up. And I'm so glad to hear that report from you. Peter is saying, both you and Dramface are some great producers of 2024. Thank you, Petehead. Thank you very much, Frank. But we don't get to vote for ourselves, do we? Okay, let's just pull that back now that it's jumped to get it back to where we were. And I can take you through the producers. Let's go a wee bit Not controversial. I don't think it's going to be controversial with anyone. These guys were in the running. Wireworks, which is White Peak Distillery. Wireworks. This is the bourbon cask release, bourbon barrel release. This came out at 53 point something. How do I read this? 53.4%, lightly peated. This is probably the cleanest, most balanced expression from them. And in fact, I've raved about this on the vPub over 2024 since it arrived. So glad to have it. But whether you pick up their Kuduro, their Alter Ego, their small batch releases, whatever it is you pick up from Wireworks for 60, 65 quid, you know you're going to love it. You're going to love it. English whiskey, Derbyshire, brilliant stuff. Pleased, really amazing to have them at the Under the Table tasting in Glasgow on the Friday of this year, talking about a completely off the wall way of reducing the strength of the ABV in cask using something that's petit eau, little water or small water. It's normally used in cognac, but they can do this, they can play with it, they're of the scale, they're in England, to bring us exciting things in future. And we trust them because of what they've been bringing us to date. Buy blind. Now, White Peak is easy, but it never made my producer of the year. It was beaten out, potentially, or it was certainly runner-up second with these guys. Have you ever heard of a wee West Coast distillery called Ardnahoe? Look at this. This is the Sauterne. Hardly anything out of it. And this is from someone who'll say to you, if you want to know the whiskey that you're really enjoying, look at your shelves. Look at the levels, what's happening to the bottles. And the bottles that are dropping fast, like the Circumstance, I can't remember who was talking about the Circumstance a wee bit earlier. I'll try and find you. I will attempt to find you, but no, I don't think so. I'll miss it. I think it was a new name that came in. Was it Glenn? Chris Dunn. Chris bought the Circumstance. Rinsed it in a month. That, if he hadn't recalled how much he was enjoying that whiskey, he would just need to look at the levels on his shelf and see, oh my goodness, these are new in and they're almost gone. So what am I talking about here? There's another thing that you can do that betrays how much you're enjoying something, and that's accumulation, how much of it you have on the shelf. We talked about this at the Glasgow Whisky Club a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about how in 2024, for me and a few others, incidentally, there were a few producers that we had accumulated a bizarre amount of bottles of. Now, it was different for everyone, but there was overlap there. And I recognised that behaviour in me. I have more bottles of Ardnahoe on my shelf today than I do any other producer. Now, of course, there's one or two bottles of my own up there that I bottled in 2023. That maybe lifts the number by 4 bottles, I think, at the most. They have got quite a few expressions out there, of which I have most of them. I was even able, with Alberto's help, I was able to pick up a Paul Lanois recently. First time I have to open that. That'll maybe be my Christmas dram. So many bottles up there. So many bottles of Ardnahoe. Buy blind. They bring out the Midgie, I buy a bottle. The 10-year-old, I seek a bottle. If I'm lucky, I might be able to get a backup. A new expression of the core range, a new AD comes out. Oh, that's getting a bit low, I better pick that up. Cask Strength comes out, yes. Sherry cask, I've not bought this year's, but I might do yet. Madeira cask from 2023, fantastic. It doesn't matter what they bring out. This is their Sauterne. I've got a rum cask up there too. It's Ardnahoe, it's just a buy. And the signature briny coastal outdoor whiskey thing blasts through. This is grape. This is kind of sweet. There's a almost like a Armagnac cognac element to this. Elegant, sweeter Ardnahoe than that I'm used to. I've hardly poured any of this. There's so much of it on the shelf. Oh wow, terrific stuff. Totally different from anything I've been sipping tonight as well. Look, what ABV is that? It's very soft. 50% ABV as well. Very soft. Very integrated. Lovely sweetness. And actually we're in the palate, a nice balance of sweetness and a wee bit of light acidity. Not sickly sweet. A nice step change from what I've been sipping. Bright. That outdoor thing always comes with the Ardnahoe Spirit for me. Fabulous stuff. They not only won a trifecta for Best New Distillery in the Oswas this year, they stepped in and won Best Distillery. Ralphie and I have to say, as much as we love what they're doing and as much as we speak positively about them and hope they continue to do what they're doing in the future, we were genuinely surprised that a new distillery that's been putting whiskey out there for 4 or 5 years, that are only 10 years old, can step in and show an entire industry, from our community's perspective, how to put whiskey together. And yet, Ardnahoe are not my producer of 2024, I'm sorry to say. My producer of 2024 is actually much closer to home. Go on, somebody guess. Alberto's saying a wee home blend of Ardnahoe cask strength and sherry in my glass right now. Perfect. A little extra sherry punch of the cask strength works great. One of the things I love doing is blending my own 2 bottlings, and also what I love doing is taking one of their Golden Promise sherry cask, where it's the George Hotel, the Good Spirits Company release. I know there's other releases out there, and blending it with lots of, it just lifts everything. Odderty has bought me a dram to say, nice to have the vPub on my birthday. Wow. Thanks for the great recommendations from you in the chat. Keeping her between the ditches, so a wee Springbank 10 on the go, or maybe 2. I tell you what I'm going to do for you, Odderty. Sometimes you're Adwerty and sometimes you're Odderty. You're playing with this, I know, unless it's 2 different people, of course. But I've given you a wee like, but what I'm going to do is raise this wee glass of Ardnahoe and say, buddy, many happy returns. It's nice to have you here hanging out with us with a Springbank 10 on your birthday. Happy birthday. Cheers. Hope you have a good one. Has anyone guessed? Anthony Quinn saying Glasgow. Brian Stormont is saying Glasgow. Highland Hamish saying Glasgow. Pete Head. Just guess Dalmore. Savar is saying Glasgow Distillery. Yes. What one have I got here? This is the original I've got here. Glasgow Distillery. This is the Manthania, the epic legend that was the Manthania cask. This is the last I've got of that liquid, despite buying a handful of bottles of it. This is the last I've got of... No, it isn't. This is a different one. I was looking for the Isla cask there. This is the peated cask strength, which I'd only just opened last week. There's another bottle of the peated cask strength from last year that's almost gone, or certainly much further down. I've got the Isla cask finish here as well, still a sealed bottle. And just over the shot, the out of reach, and these have appeared on previous vPubs. I've got Madeira cask. I've got the Glasgow's triple. It's not a cask strength, it's just the standard core range triple distilled. If I talk about accumulation from this wee distillery in Glasgow, and I need to, just in 2020, 2021, Glasgow Distillery was one of the first distilleries that appeared on the Ignored series. I was ignoring them. Despite being invested in them and interested in buying the inaugural release, I continued to ignore them. It's taken things to change a little bit at Glasgow, but now I'm holding up this bottle of their original release and telling you right now that this is a distillery to watch for a number of reasons. Integrity, transparency, ethics, personality, variety, fairness, honesty, fun. Is it difficult? I don't think it's difficult to work these things out. Glasgow reduced the prices of their core range in 2024. Reduced the prices. They'd reached an economy of scale on the original, and it went from £49 to £45. When their small batch comes out, it doesn't matter if it's single cask, doesn't matter if it's 2 casks, doesn't matter if it's peated, unpeated, doesn't matter what kind of cask it's come from. Right across the board, their small batch releases go out at cask strength in £59. Their large core range cask strength, whether it's the original cask strength or the peated PX cask strength, goes out there at 60% ABV, in the neighbourhood of at least £64-65. We cannot ask for any more than the whiskey to be good. Ask anyone who goes to a festival where Glasgow are exhibiting and ask them about their whiskey of the day. What whiskey stood out for you? Some of them will volunteer Glasgow, or at least one expression from the Glasgow table, absolutely without question. And if they don't, ask them, did you manage to try Glasgow? And you'll see the reaction. You'll see them, oh yeah, we did. Because they've been ignoring Glasgow as well. And they were shocked and surprised. I don't know when I worked out that Glasgow were going to be my producer of 2024, but it was a while ago. And it was when I realised that I cannot ask a company to do anything more to endear themselves to me. Glasgow have done it. Time and time and time again. There is not a metric that we can measure a whiskey producer by that they are failing on. My only concern is that I hope that they are putting down enough stock for the longer term game, so that we don't always have to have these whiskies in this guise. I suspect the reason that Glasgow have got so good in recent times is because of the depth of stock is slowly building, their expertise, they're in their groove now, and their maturity is starting to show. And I would love that to continue in that direction as well. I'll put my hand up and say I'm willing to pay for that. I'm looking forward to that. We don't want cheap whiskey. We want fair whiskey. We want honest whiskey. You're doing that. I hope that there's enough to lay down for the future. But my producer of 2024, and it's been a very, very easy decision for me this year, is Glasgow Distillery. You need to understand how good that feels for a Glaswegian. For distilling, for whiskey buzz, fun, production at Clydeside, down on the Clyde and over at Glasgow and Hillington, to be back and healthy in Glasgow again is thrilling, beyond exciting. It only needs to be good whiskey. Clydeside are bringing fantastic whiskey. That Napier is one of the best sherry cask core range bottlings I tried in 2024. Clydeside Napier. But Glasgow Distillery, it doesn't matter what they do, it doesn't matter what they touch, the way that they do it, the way they're bringing it to market, nobody will argue with my choice. I know that. Nobody, some people might be surprised, but I don't think they'll confront it. They've charmed everyone in 2024. Daniel was guessing Clydeside. You're very, very close. Danny Hebbington is saying the Isla cask in the Bonaccord yesterday. Excellent stuff. Danny, you might hear more about that in a wee while. Doodle the Dram is talking about Isla cask is vegetable broth to mend your cold in a whiskey bottle. Just effing yummy, says Arnie. Jimmy Legg is saying, did we sit side by side in the Glasgow tasting room and try 5 or 6 of these? I'm kind of glad we didn't agree on it then, and I think we still don't. That was also that we stood together when I tried for the first time that Isla cask, and it lit me up. Fun is an understatement. Great team from top to bottom, says Whiskey Wings Mike. Arnie Doodle the Drama is saying true magic coming from behind the stinking Arnold Clarks. You work down close to there, so maybe you know the area more than I do. Jimmy Legg is saying not everyone aquavitae. Oh, okay, Jimmy. Well, okay, we've got some work to do for Jimmy Legg, and that's why we need to have folk in who's a wee bit open to confrontation, let's say. Martin Logan is saying, heading to bed now. We'll catch up on the replay as well. Good for Glasgow. I really enjoyed what I tried, and the visit with Seb, well deserved. Fantastic stuff. I realised, and I think the one that actually pushed it over the edge for me was the triple distilled, and that's words I never imagined me ever saying. The fruity, clean side of it is not what you associate with Glasgow Distillery. And it was just that ability for them to have, they're almost like a mini Loch Lomond. They're kind of similar to Springbank in a way, where they've got the triple distilled, they've got their original, and then they've got their kind of big funky peated PX. So imagine that a wee bit like Hazelburn, Springbank and Longrow, but obviously from a very young distillery. But I think they're in a lot of ways much more similar to Loch Lomond and Loch Lomond's ability to do multiple things. Loch Lomond, we don't see any kind of core range triple distilled product coming out from them, of course. But, you know, the similar thing with the Inchmore and Inchmurren and original 12-year-old Loch Lomond as well. Jimmy likes saying a wee bit, lol, you're a sweet, sweet man. Jimmy, we've never argued vehemently. We've had minor disagreements, let's say. We've never raised our voice. We've never fallen out of love, let's put it that way. And Mike Molasses is saying, good evening, Roy, Aquavite and chat and folk. Had a conflict tonight, but wanted to make it in time for the quiz. Well, not only have you made it in time for the quiz, my friend Mike, you've made it in time for me to reveal what my whiskey of the year is for 2024 as well. Maybe I should pour a wee bit of the Glasgow just to see what Jimmy's going on about, but let's give it a minute. Can I ask you all to do something? Sit down and look back on the last year and imagine you had a platform. Imagine you were writing about whiskey, podcasting about whiskey, sitting behind a camera, talking about whiskey. Imagine that you had a weight of some responsibility on your shoulders, whether that be quite light and easy and fun, or whether there was generally probably some people going to run out and spend money based on what you were about to say. Look at the whiskies that you've had and say, nominate this for Whiskey of the Year. The list starts with a handful because there's obvious sparks that come to mind. As you're walking around and spending your day-to-day life, eating a sandwich, driving a car, you think, oh, I remember that one. Oh, I need to write that down. I need to add that. I need to think about that. I need to try that again. I need to revisit this. And then you realise there is so much to talk about. There is so much variety today. There is so many things that can make you think that is worthy of a whiskey of the year. I say all that to make it look like a big, heavy burden, because there is genuine challenge in it. If you sit down and try and do it, you'll realise how tricky it is to pick one and then imagine that you were going to announce it. But I also say all of that to make you realise the most important thing. The vPub will always prioritise fun, and it's always about fun. If someone takes my whiskey of the year and they run out and spend their money on it, and then they come back to me and think, oh, I was a bit let down by that. Remember, you're adults. I know that you're listening to me. I know that you're hearing the way that I'm enjoying these things. But I share this with you earnestly, honestly, with integrity, with no influence from any outside people. It's just me. I can say and do what I want. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. I need go to no one cap in hand. I need to accept samples or bottles from no one in the industry. This is me spending my own money all the time. And it's fun to do this stuff. The reason I pick and show the ones that were difficult for me to think about, difficult for me to dismiss, it doesn't even scratch the surface. I've got pages and pages of notes here of things that I've just scored out. It says, it doesn't make it through, it doesn't make it through, for various reasons. But even when you get down to 2 or 3, you've got to decide one. And then you give yourself a break and say, it doesn't really matter. It's just whiskey. It's okay. Nobody's going to be made or broken on what Roy says, but it'll give us a discussion point. And if I ever finished a year and didn't share with you what my whiskey of the year was, you'd be annoyed at me. Some of you maybe. Maybe not Jimmy. Daniel Key is saying Dalmore 15 whiskey of the year. Dalmore. I think it was Daniel that brought... Was it Daniel that brought his whiskey to the sharing events in a Dalmore box? It was never Dalmore, but he brought it in a Dalmore box. Adrian H is saying whiskey of the year from the Aqua VT would have to be Springbank 12 cast strength or Coquerin 8 cast strength, but this was the first version I've had of either as a relative newbie. Glad you managed to get hold of them, Adrian. They're brilliant things. Can you imagine if I suggested Springbank 12 cast strength as whiskey of the year? I think it would be nice for it to be something that the majority of the community have a chance of getting their hands on. Even if it's not distributed to their market, it's distributed in enough numbers for long enough into the future that we might be able to get a hold of it. Arnie Doodle the Dram is saying, my top whiskey this year is a 100 proof young peated Ben Nevis. I think it's the 8-year-old one that I showed earlier. The estery sausagey weirdness sums up what I love in whiskey. I think you're going to enjoy exploring Ben Nevis there, Arnie. A big surprise coming from around the corner that makes me smile. David Owen is in. Good to see you, David. He's saying, Benromac for me, something for everyone. The core range contrast series, cast strength batches and single cask offerings. They were on multiple lists tonight because of what they're bringing. I wish Benromac would just have a bit more, I don't know, personality about them, a bit more kind of connection, a bit more of understanding why some of their probably most available agonised over malts, the 10-year-old, 15 and 21-year-old is still so I feel terrible, but that's abused. Stop chill filtering that gorgeous liquid. Stop it. Just a few percent ABV. We'll pay for it. We'll pay. Danny Hebington is saying my whiskey of the year is the ones I drink between 21:45 on a Thursday, you sweetheart. He said, and Friday o'clock. You're a superstar, Danny. That's wonderful to have you in. That's a very nice thing to say. Thanks for your very generous dram. Cheers. Great stuff. And Harrow's saying Springback 12. Cast strength, and the surprise is the peated Jura from Milroy's, but I have to rethink before I make a post about it. Listen, there was a Jura in my offing. That Jura 16. Every time I go back to it, it is a sweet whiskey. I always need to caveat it. That 16-year-old Jura Perspectives 01 was one of the seismic moments in 2024 for me. It never made it through, but it's deserving of your attention. If there's no budget limit, says Daniel, the decadent drinks Whiskeyland Springbank is a thing of beauty. That's right, there is. For the majority of us, big guy, unfortunately, I don't think I could get away with nominating that. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. I've got 2 glasses left. 2 clean glasses left. There is whiskey in every glass I've poured tonight. By the way, I think it's a spittoon evening tonight. Tommy Simpson is saying, Balcones, please try it. So that's the Cataleja is the one he's been enjoying it tonight. Jason Whiskywise is in. Good to see you, Jason. He's saying, has anyone tried the new Scapa 10, 16 and 21-year-old? Yes. I've tried the 10. I thought it was fantastic. The 16-year-old I thought was mate. And I've not tried the 21-year-old yet. Scapa 10-year-old was actually in the running. They've admitted to adding caramel to the range. It's not just a kind of QR code thing, a whiskey-based thing. I've had some communication back. I can't remember who it was that came back with a screenshot. Thank you for doing that. But they emailed in eventually, or it was a Facebook chat, and they got them to admit that, yeah, we're still adding caramel. Colouring, I don't think you need to, Scapa. Please stop that. There's no need for it. I think the people that's going to love that whiskey and pick it up are going to love it for what it is. If you don't know this, Roy, you can get away with anything. Nobody can get away with anything, Jimmy. But thank you. Your whiskey of the year will be just that, your whiskey of the year. And he's putting that in capitals. Daniel is saying, your opinion is very appreciated, especially the transparency. Thank you, Daniel. And Mike is saying, Isla Harris Herak is my whiskey of the year. I just love it. On my 3rd bottle already. I wonder if you're getting on with the sherry cask version as well. Fantastic, Mike. All right, let's go on with it. Well, let's build up to it again. Aye. I've already mentioned this one. This isn't my whiskey of the year, but it was in the running. When I open this seal, this will disappear very, very fast. I've gifted a lot of these bottles out there. There are people watching right now that have had this gifted from me. This is the Glasgow 1770 peated cask, the one that Jimmy was in the room when I tried this for the first time. And I knew that I was sipping something that was completely different. And it drowned out everything else, and I couldn't wait for it to come out. When it came out, I just wanted it to live up to the moment in the tasting room, and it was just as good. I bought gifts, I bought more, I shared it at the blind tasting. It did very well. People thought it was the Springbank, believe it or not. This does not taste to me like Springbank. This just tastes like a bloody good, well-crafted, tasty, different, unique, interesting, wonderful peated whiskey. It hides its ABV well. It's got different flavours from one sip to the next. It's integrated. It plays with you. It's all over the place. It's wonderful. How can you have peated whiskey and then think it's going to be good to take it out of virgin oak and put it into an Islay finishing cask? Madness. And yet somehow this worked. This is an outturn of 303 bottles. I think I've bought more than a case of this. I can't have my whiskey of the year something that very few of you are going to be able to get your hands on. But if you happen upon a wee bottle of Islay cask, Glasgow 1770, this beats the Manthania that I was shouting loudly about from the rooftops earlier in the year. The Glasgow Manthania, which was, interestingly, a small batch, but a single cask, a legitimate single cask. Or not a legitimate official single cask, but it was one cask, let's say. This is the best Glasgow whiskey that there's been so far. And I don't say that lightly. It's the best Glasgow whiskey that I have tried. It's the best Glasgow whiskey that I have had available for me to try. And yet, it doesn't get my whiskey of the year. The next one I'm going to hold up to you is still available. There's plenty of it out there. It's been available for years, and I'm very late to the party. But it's only available from one place now in the UK, and that's a wee shame. But it's still available, and it's not expensive. Fully natural whiskey, unchill filtered, 46% ABV, 12-year age statement, natural colour, £55 from the direct supplier. You can still get it in bricks and mortar places. You can occasionally get it online, but generally if you want to buy it in the UK, you need to go straight to the producer. I am loving this whiskey. This is my couch pour of 2024. This is the thing that I'm not really sure. I just want to take a dram, just sip and nose a dram while I watch this movie. What I'm in the mood for, I can't really make a decision. This is the default. This is wonderful stuff. This is rare. This is balanced, marvellous, engaging, texture, despite 46% ABV, flavour, nosing, switching it up. You want to play with a few drops of water, it'll deliver, it'll bring it back to you. This is Dewar's Altmore. This is the 12-year-old. This is a Foggy Moss. I got a dram. It's quite expensive to pick up the 18-year-old. I bought a dram of the 18-year-old and realised that it would be something that I would like to have and sit down with. But I thought about how you would have to spend more than double what you can pick up the 12-year-old for that 18-year-old. And I have not made that gamble. I'm out. I'm not paying that for I think it was £135 for their 18-year-old. Too much. That said, their 12-year-old, you put it up against any other thing of the same age, really any other thing of the same age, and it might be beaten. But even when it's beaten, I put it to you that you will be surprised how fantastic a quality product this is. The Dewar's range is kind of all over the place right now. Craigellachie is fantastic. Aberfeldy, there's word that there's going to be more good stuff coming from Aberfeldy at better, more natural presentation, unchill filtered, higher ABV, natural colour, all the things that we love. Altmore's been doing it for years alongside Craig Ellicky. I would love to think that this is going to endure. I would hate to see the back of this. There is word that it's going to disappear from the UK market, from the European market, but right now it's still supported from Dewars Aberfeldy direct. Pick it up at your local independent retailer if you can, please. Just, if you've got this at a decent price, somewhere in the ballpark of £50 to £60, I think you will be surprised how balanced and flavourful and honest and engaging this bottle of official Altmore whiskey is. But it's not my whiskey of the year. Is it mostly bourbon matured? It looks it. Yes, it is mostly bourbon matured. I suspect that there could be some sherry in the mix. It doesn't matter, Jimmy. It doesn't taste like that because the profile is much, much more kind of bourbon cask, ex-bourbon cask, ex-refill, that kind of thing. Altmore 12, Road to Dramface, absolutely. Dual Dramface, carrot peels and lovage for me in the Isla cask. Madness. As long as you're enjoying it, Arnie. And Gian is saying, good to see you, Gian. How are you doing? How's Teresa doing? Hi, Aquaviti and everyone. First vPub. Caught live after our trip down under. Now bedtime, though. Hard to pick a best whiskey moment this year. So many of these. Fringe being one of those. Wink, wink. I enjoyed the Fringe as well. That was fantastic, Gian. You and Teresa. Robert. The crowd just coming back. Just getting to relax after a great day. Wonderful. Jean Kelly saying Aquaviti, my bottle of the year are Aquaviti Loch Lomond bottlings. I'm sipping slowly to make them last as long as possible. That means so much, Jean, that you've invested in those and that they're paying back and that you're loving them. I would put it, don't have anxiety over them. There's a lot of kind of sad emojis over the empty bottles and the bottle kills on social media, especially the Barfly's Facebook page and things. It's okay, because when it's finished and gone, every time you think about it, the memory will be amplified. It's amazing. Graham Young, my pal from Canada's here. Happy holiday season, Roy, and all the best to your family. Little Brown Dog, Glen Talkers, 2013. I got a calendar this fall in the glass. I think it's turning Claudette a bit whiskey curious too. Is there anything the Little Brown Dog cannot do? Amazing, buddy. I'll raise a wee glass to say thank you for your dram, Graham. It's wonderful to know you and Claudette and the rest of your family and Gino. And everybody else that you want to introduce me to while you're visiting these shores. It's a pleasure to know you, buddy. Cheers. Well, another generous dram coming in from my pal Peter. The superstar that is Peter Lee, he's saying best of 2024 was meeting up with every barfly old and new. Forming new friendships included Dave Barnes, Arnie, plus being able to spend time with yourself, Amy, James DeGilio, James McGoran and Denise. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for being so enthusiastic about it all, so gracious, so hospitable, and just being the glue that holds our community together. It's, you just help piece everything together. You and that good lady of yours, buddy. Thank you for the generous dram, Peter Lee. Have a happy Christmas as well, fella. All right, so here we have it. Okay, I'm going to... Please hold. Let me show you what I wanted to make my whiskey of the year, and then tell you the reason that I couldn't. And then tell you what made it my whiskey of the year. And then tell you what I've been doing in the background while I've been speaking to you live tonight. I wanted to make this my whiskey of the year. This is Ardnahoe's inaugural release. Ardnahoe on Islay, 5 years old. Inaugural release. I don't even know where to begin with it, talking about what a master stroke they pulled off with this. If you ask somebody to do something and do it well, and then think up all the metrics that you can possibly think to measure them by, this kills it. Kills it. And when you start to critique it and find things to say, oh, well, it was £70, it was a wee bit more expensive than I imagined on it, you realise how petty you're being. for a distillery that we were anticipating the inaugural release of for a long time. They put out a 5-year-old as their inaugural. 50% ABV, £70. They put out 70,000 bottles of it. So there was no FOMO, there was no squabble, no scrum, no fighting, no. We all had the sense that we could pick this up, to the point that I managed to pick up a second and now a third bottle of it. And you can still pick up Ardnahoe's inaugural release now, months after it's come out. Thank you, Ardnahoe, for being so sensible. Let's move on. Let's talk about how you brought together a whiskey that when you poured it for people when they knew what they were sipping, they were blown away. And when you poured it for them blind and then told them what they were sipping, they were even more blown away. The craft and the skill that this whiskey has been made with is only bettered by the canniness that it's been put together with. We know how good Scotland is at making whiskey. Scotland is becoming shit at taking the mature whiskey and putting it out to the market in a decent way. Time and time again, we're seeing it messed up through greed, clumsiness, or put in the hands of people that don't care or don't know. That is not the case here. This is an epic bottle, and there are very few bottles that would challenge this in terms of inaugural success. Maybe on a good day, the Ardnamurchan in 2020, maybe Daffmill back in 2016, 2017, whenever Daffmill first came out. But remember, Daffmill was a 12-year-old. I would suggest this goes toe-to-toe with those. It's £70. But this is an inaugural release. Despite it being available everywhere, even 70,000 bottles can't last forever. So knowing that despite it still being available, this could have been my whiskey. This was so close to being my whiskey of the year. Then the core range came out. Instead of this inaugural, they brought out the Infinite Loch, and I opened this on a vPub very recently. This is the non-age stated core range that's going to be available to us fairly regularly. 50% ABV still. And this, to me, this is, and you can tell by the colour when you hold the two full bottles together, it's not obvious here tonight, but when the two more full bottles are, have I got one here? Yes, here's the one I managed to pick up before I started raving about this. You can see that this one here, the inaugural, is a notch or two darker, okay? And I opened the Infinite Loch, and my memory of opening it was, that's good. No, that's good. That's a good whiskey. I'm pleased with that. I'm very happy to have that. That's a good whiskey. Cruel of me, and I apologise. Why? Because I was not judging this to the way I normally judge whiskey, against its peers for £55, the price I paid for it. No, I wasn't judging it about the other things that it needs to compete with out there in the marketplace. I wasn't judging it against the other core range releases from new distilleries. I was judging it against this. And I was judging it against the whiskey that I tried in the distillery, straight from the cask. What I've done with this whiskey since is buy a replacement bottle at £55. Your local retailer might have it at 60, but between 54, 55, 58, 59, 60 pounds, this is a core range release. And get to know this and share it with people and pour it blind while you do so. And then do what I've done tonight. Take two randomers from the list, from my list that I was working through to try and work out what was going to be my whiskey of the year. So over recent weeks, I've been sipping this alongside its fellow Islay 50% non-age stated release, the Classic Laddie. Hey, not apples for apples, Roy, that's not fair. This is unpeated and that's peated. You're not comparing the same thing. Sorry, I'm comparing two competing Islay brands at 50% ABV and non-age statement and a very, very similar price point. Admittedly, the Classic Laddie, the scale that they're at, you're able to pick them up now in the late 40s. A wee bit cheaper. So I also compared them to another non-age stated Slightly lower ABV. This is Kilchoman's Mahir Bay, which was also on my Whiskey of the Year 2024 list. Non-age stated, but this time peated. If you have these whiskies on hand, I encourage you to do the same thing, because I was sipping. This is the Kilchoman in this, and in this glass is the Brook Laddie, Classic Laddie, and in this glass, look at the levels that betray you, what you're enjoying. This glass is the Ardnahoe. This is the Ardnahoe Infinite Loch. This is the core range. This is the one that's going to pick up the baton, the relay from the inaugural that came out and carry things forward. There's been talk in here tonight already about the Society release, an exclusive one that was sold to Society members. I was hovering over the trigger. I haven't bought it yet. Maybe I'm too late. I'm talking about the Infinite Loch that everyone that can buy Ardnahoe should be able to buy. And I sipped it alongside these two tonight, and I've been sipping it alongside others on the run-up to this very vPub tonight. And this, I am saying to you with conviction, Ardnahoe's core range product is my whiskey of the year. I've poured this alongside Colilla 12, Lagavulin 16. I hear you, Roy, that's 50% whiskey against 43. Okay, move along. Lefroy's, cast strength Lefroy's. Continue up and down all over Islay. Go into the Peaty Bunnahavens, the Moynias, they challenge it a bit. They really do. Then you come onto the mainland and you compare that Ardnahoe for a non-age stated, lucky if it's 5 years old whiskey, and think if they're making this quality of liquid that tastes this mature, this rounded, this together, this balanced at this age, the future from that wee distillery on Islay, what they're going to bring to us is very surprising. I will stand up and I'll drink this alongside many things in the future. I'll hopefully get a chance to share it with you. I'll hopefully encourage some of you to maybe encourage that it makes it into your Christmas stockings or a purchase in the near new year. And I'll say what I always say about these things. I stand by it. If you really, really hate it, I'll maybe take the bottle back off you and pay for whatever's left in it. That's how confident I am in it. It is nuts that we can have whiskey of this quality at this age in 2024. It's not like whiskey used to be, how it used to be made. They've invested in everything that was expensive. An all-access distillery with wooden washbacks, extended fermentation time, slow distillation, long line arms that go into worm tubs. Invested in, we hear, the best casks. Anything that I've tried and any feedback that I've had is all about that. They are killing it. They are killing it. Jimmy Legacy in Ardnahoe is the only new distillery I've actually liked. It's got some real substance to it. Oh dear. So that then you know to be a wee bit nervous there, because when Jimmy Legg and I start to agree on something, you can so take from that what you will. Jimmy, thank you for your dram, buddy. I'm glad you're enjoying it too. The One Glassman is saying, cheers Roy and fellow barflies, my humble top 5 list for 2025 in order is Brook Laddie 18. Fantastic. Almost made the list. Not quite. Loved that whiskey. Loved it. An absolute highlight in 2024 for me, Warner. Bunnahavin 12 cast strength. So you're talking about the 2023 release was the last one that they had. Fantastic pick. Rose Isle 12. Very delicate, a very specific whiskey to recommend to someone. I was surprised when I gave it time. buy it on secondary. That's my advice for Rosile, whether it's the new one or last year's. But a very, very good pick. Thompson Brothers TB BSW 6-year-old, that's the blend I showed earlier. And Lefroy Cartius 10-year-old CF. I'm not sure what the CF stands for. All the best to our wonderful community. Cheers. Warner, over there in the States, I think you're Miami, you're Florida or somewhere, aren't you, buddy? Wonderful to have you in. Thanks for your generous dram and thanks for sharing your top 5 picks. Tom Bollinger is celebrating being a member of the Barflies and supporting for the last 9 months. He's saying, can't wait to visit Ardnahoe and Isla in 2025. You're going to have a ball, Tom. I hope you have a fantastic time. Fernando is saying, the best about 2024 was to have tasted different whiskies with friends and share vPubs and the Oswas and keep learning from this great community. It's all about the connections, Fernando. It's all about the people. It's always, always, always about the people, isn't it? But whiskey does a bloody good job at getting good people together. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Warner and Jimmy. Thank you. Coincidentally, Danny Hebden is saying, inaugural was my first dram tonight. Might as well finish it with the infinite Loch. Are you enjoying it, Danny? Is it going down well? Cal Taylor is saying, poured an equal blend of the Glenbow 10, Lechic 10 and the Glenallachie 10 cast strength batch 8 as my celebration of 2024. No reason for choosing those at all. Aquaviti, cannot wait for the next pod. It's my favourite pod that we've ever recorded. It's not edited yet, Kyle, but it's coming out soon. I'll be devastated if that doesn't come together well because it was a brilliant session and I encourage everyone to do exactly what you're doing tonight. So just the Dramface podcast, we're doing a session where we've taken Glenallachie 10, Glenmorangie 10 and Lechic 10 and we're trying to come up with the best blend of the 3 and we sip it together and choose a winner and select a winner. It was a brilliant, mind-opening, mind-boggling, wonderful session. Infinite Loch is a wee bourbon-led loveliness. They will love this confirmation. Thank you, David. I think they deserve it, buddy. They're just up the road from you. I don't know a lot about the distillery. I don't know a lot about the people that are there. I got to hang out once upon a time in the Bowmore Hotel with Fraser Hughes, who at that time, I think he's moved on, was the distillery manager, fantastic guy. And you got a wee bit under the hood of how earnest they were trying to do things and stuff. The best part is that they will make more, Whiskey Throttle is saying, and I think that that's true about Hunter Lang, the people that are beside Ardnahoe Distillery. They are behind it for the long row, and Daniel is saying the bottle comparison just shows that all whiskey is rare. Each bottle is different, each barrel is different, each bottle is different, grain is different, water changes, etc. I love the wisdom tonight, Daniel, coming from you. Wonderful. Pete Ed is saying Infinite Loch is a decent dram indeed, but not against all other expressions I've tried over from Ardnahoe, all over 10 so far. I would suggest to you, Frank, do not try. That's the weakness of Infinite Loch. Infinite Loch, if you compare it against the inaugural, it's not fair. Compare Infinite Loch against its peers on the shelf for 55 quid. Do it blind. Do it not blind. Do it honestly. It will have the effect on you that it's had on me over the last month. It's shocking how good that is. And the only reason that we can compare it and say, oh, it didn't, is if we compare it to its own stablemates, which is its biggest endorsement. Mike Whiskey Wings has found my favourite thing about Infinite Loch is that you can experience a real distillery tour in terms of smells. So I wonder if that's a reference at all to the kind of fermented, the long fermentation, or the kind of esters or whatever. I think it's a fantastic dram, Mike, and I hope you like it too. Brilliant Aquaviti. My whiskey moment of the year was Paul Main at the Glasgow Whisky Festival, and that story I told you about the guy asking for the under the table dram. And telling a certain entitled person to F off. Is that the way we'll remember that story, Ben? I didn't witness it, but you told me the story. It's just class. Brian Stormont is saying, just mixed a Lagavulin special release with a mince pie. Fantastic, Brian. Does that mean it's going down well? He's saying oofed. Danny Hebington is saying, nearly finished the inaugural. Definitely going to grab another. Infinite Loch is only 2 drams in, but it's definitely a quality dram. You're saying it's a quality dram, comparing it against the inaugural. If you sip it on its own against its peers, that's when it shows you its strength. I bought a bottle of Glenallachie 10 to go along with the pod. I had the others on hand and was planning to get it eventually. Really looking forward to it, says Klitz. Okay, buy this for the podcast. Try and mix your own whiskies between Glenmorangie's 10 bourbon, Lechic 10 peated, Glenallachie 10 cast strength, tends to be heavily sherried. Have fun with it. And then bring it along and listen to the podcast. We had an amazing time, So there we have it. There we have everything bar the wooden spoon. Can we finish on a negative tonight? Why did I want to do a wooden spoon thing? Well, I want to talk about the shenanigans and the nonsense and the crap that goes on in whiskey. I've just spent the whole night talking to you about the fabulous, fun and exciting times that we've had in 2024 and how optimistic and bright the future is for whiskey. And yet we've got Inverhouse changing the presentation of Speyburn to 40% ABV. What? Just as your product was being discovered, one of the most unique malts produced at a Wormtub distillery, one of the most traditional malts just being uncovered after being clumsily packaged as a bottom shelf malt for decades, especially in North America, started to come out, started to sprout and get the attention that it deserved. Thank you for producing the 15-year-old and the 18-year-old at Natural Presentation and shouting loudly about it for years. Took us a while to cotton on because we've associated Speyburn with being a bottom shelf bargain basement special in Scotch whisky for years. It was starting to change, and for some reason you've gone and you're talking about bringing, so everyone out there, Speyburn 15 and 18 are now changing to 40% ABV for reasons that in my mind only deserve a wooden spoon. Craziness, maniacal self-destruction, a race to the bottom, not celebrating the quality and intrinsic deliciousness of the whiskey, but stripping it out after you've matured it for 15 and 18 years. It's shameful. But I understand why you're doing it, because you're a business and there are reasons to do these things, justifications. Whether you can make a case for it or not, that's debatable. But malt whiskey doesn't want to play at 40%. You have to compromise it. You have to remove things. Chill filtration. You're then tempted to add things. Artificial colouring. Things that you've not done for the 15 and 18-year-old Speyburn for years. I'll miss it, but I'll be buying up stocks and I will not be buying any of the 40% stuff. I know what Speyburn tastes like at 40%, and it's not a shadow of the whiskey that's actually made at Speyburn. You were in the running for the wooden spoon. Second place. I want to talk about Johnnie Walker and what they tried to do to us last year. Before I tell you what they tried to do to us this year. In 2023, Johnnie Walker tried to celebrate Jim Beveridge and World Whisky Day by smashing the two things together. I'll forgive them for that clumsiness. Jim Beveridge should have had his own thing to celebrate him, and World Whisky Day should have been a thing to celebrate World Whisky Day for the world to celebrate whiskey. But no, what did Diageo do for Johnnie Walker in 2013? They took their most prolific whiskey from Cameron Bridge, non-age stated grain, and then they blended it with their most prolific, most available, most abundant malt from Rose Isle, from their mega factory in Speyside, non-age stated. They took that malt and they took that grain and they blended it together, presumably somewhere in the neighbourhood of 50% H, non-age stated. Then, in order to apply contrived exclusivity to that creation, they limited it to 1,000 bottles only. So you're celebrating the career of Jim Beveridge and World Whisky Day with 1,000 exclusive bottles only. Here's the rub. £1,000 per bottle. £1,000 a bottle for a non-age stated blend of the most ubiquitous malt that they have and the most ubiquitous grain. That was them putting a toe in the water just to see how gullible their market was. £1 million worth of whiskey, 1,000 times 1,000, it's nothing to Diageo. So what was that exercise? Because it didn't celebrate gin beverage and it did not celebrate World Whisky Day. It was cynicism, contrived. Who's responsible for such a thing? Because I have not seen a one sentence of justification that makes me think that there's reasoning behind it. It's utter pish. Then, in 2024, they take an exclusive bottle of Johnnie Walker and they literally wrap it in a puffer jacket style packaging and charge through the nose for it. It's just, there's a think tank in Diageo right now that is just sitting around a table. Not one of them drink whiskey. Not one of them care about whiskey in 2024, 2025, 2023 or 2026. They don't care. They're career driven. They're creatives. They're whatever they're coming up with. They're making an utter farce, a parody. It's satire. It's nonsense. This is Scotch whisky. The brand that you're dealing with there is Johnnie Walker. Century old. More than a century old now. What? Why are you... What? And before you say we're taking it to new people, you take... No. You're selling something that should be flavour driven and you're making it gimmick driven. If that's successful for bringing people into whiskey, then I'll apologise and I'll back out and shut up. But I suspect the only thing it's successful for is premiumisation, a race to the top that inevitably will end up being a race to the bottom because it's fashion that you're chasing. Anyway, they deserve a nomination for the Wooden Spoon, but they don't get it despite that abuse. The Wooden Spoon in 2024 goes to this abomination. Anyone recognise this? Ardbeg 17-year-old was a product that brought Ardbeg back to life. In the late 90s, as the millennium came around, they relaunched as they brought the distillery back from the dead. And not really knowing much about the zeitgeist of the time, they had 17-year-old core range product, but they brought it out there to compete with the whisky market of the time, which was a 40% market. Competing with blends, cannibalising blends and things. Not appreciating or caring that there was an entire community out there that loved Ardbeg, that knew that Ardbeg was malt whisky and appreciated what it did. What Ardbeg have done in 2024 is they brought back that 17-year-old, but then they brought it back at 40% ABV. And they talked with such patronising, clumsy language in their press and their communications about how they had bent over backwards for the fans in order to bring back the 17-year-old in its original state because it becomes such a legend. Listen, it was not a legend because it was 40% ABV. It was not a legend because it was 17%. It wasn't a legend because it was particularly great. It was a legend because it was Ardbeg back again. I'm grateful to Ardbeg for Ugadal, Corryvreckan, for Ardnahoe, for all the other ones that's come out naturally. I'm especially grateful to Ardbeg for the 10-year-old. But for the language that was used in this press release in 2024, for the cynicism of bringing out a bottle, a 17-year-old malt whisky, Precious Isla Liquid, Precious Ardbeg, putting out there at 40% ABV, bragging in the press release that the original price was $29.99, but that it's now sold on secondary for $650, and then with no shame whatsoever talking about how this release in 2024 was £160. That is shameful. And they get the Wooden Spoon for 2024. If you took that $29.99 and added the inflation through the Bank of England inflation calculator from 99-ish, 97.98 to today, it should be retailing at about 57 or a bit less, £56. When I saw Ardbeg 17 on the shelf, it was £40 I'd had to pay. Interestingly, it was in a a newsagent that's only a couple of miles up the road. Just years ago they had it, I never bought it. Kind of wish I did, but it was £40. Going back to about 2005, 2006, I think. £40. Inflation had that today, it should be retailing at about £75. But Ardbeg have put 40% malt whisky, 17-year-old whisky from their Renaissance stock at 40% out there and charging £160 for it and expected the world to go cock a hoop for it. It's still on shelves everywhere. Of course it is. Do they even know their market today in 2024? Do they know the people that give a crap about Ardbeg? They don't want 40% whiskey. They're a wee bit beyond that. They want malt whiskey to be malt. And if it's going to be 40%, it better be 40% because it's arrived at that ABV naturally. Not because you've added water to reduce it to that. And then had to chill filter it because you've done so. This is compromising the liquid that you've spent 17 years making. Don't dress it up as a fan service when it's pure, cynical profiteering. You, Ardbeg, as much as I love you and everything that you do, a lot of things that you do, you win the wooden spoon for 2024. Sorry to end on a negative. Sorry to end on a rant. I should maybe do it in a different order in future, where we do the wooden spoon first and then we go on to Whisky of the Year, so I can talk about all the positive things that's happening. Ardnahoe on the exact same island as Ardbeg, coming at it from totally different angles. Arrogance is rife in whisky right now. Resting on laurels is rife in whisky right now. But for us, as drinkers, community, enthusiasts, lovers of the whisky, the creature, we can focus on the people who are bringing earnest attempts at integrity, quality, at fair prices, ethics over arrogance. Petehead is saying Johnny Walker, Johnny sliding into even worse. Alistair McPhail is saying Speyburn 18 was one of my favourite drams at Glasgow Whisky Festival. When I heard they were reducing the ABV, I couldn't believe it. A bloody awful decision. I'll buy a few bottles before they diminish it. Arnie Doodle Dram is saying, sounds like there was a bet placed at last year's Diageo Christmas night out. Who can make the biggest buck on shifting the biggest nonsense? That's exactly what it sounds like to me 2 years in a row. Whiskey Throttle is saying, let me guess you're not going to buy a new Jaguar in 2025. Who is it that's... Actually, I'm not going to spoil. Sorry, I almost spoiled a quiz question at the end. Petehead is saying, I don't want to recognise that. Not Ardbeg as I loved it. Exactly, Petehead. You're an Ardbeg fan. Daniel Key is saying, I departed from Heathrow yesterday, decided to drop by the Glenmorangie boutique, and they were selling a 25-year-old single cask for £5,000. Oh my God, Jimmy Legg is saying, but look how it grips that rock. Aquavite, stop with that, Ardbeg. Peter is saying, well-deserved wooden spoon Aquavite. Do you want me to make one, or is it too much honour? Well, you could make one. We don't give it out. I just hold it up every year. I think I've got your honey stirrer here. And amongst the... Actually, I've got a couple of things from you. I've got this Glencairn, and I've got your honey stirrer here as well. And a note from you too, buddy. Or it might be... No, it is. It's from you. As a token of appreciation, coincidentally, for an Ardbeg, the Trevan 19-year-old, and running the vPub, I hereby do not send you a virtual dram, but a small gift I've made from hardwood. I've finished it with food save oil. That should mean that you can use it, although I do not know how the oil reacts to alcohol. Therefore, it might just be seen as a non-usable gift. Anyway, Slanchiva, Petehead. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pour some... This will be dusty. Maybe we'll give it a rinse with some water, will we, Frank, before we go into the quiz at the end? First time I've used your glass, in inverted commas. Let's give it a wee shuggle. And a rinse. I should have checked to see if the water tastes of anything. And I'll take a dram out of your handmade hardwood Glencairn. Pour a wee bit of my Whisky of the Year into it. And if you want to make yourself busy putting together a wee wooden spoon and think it's a good idea for us to have annual wooden spoon negative bashes. I'm up for it. Cheers, Frank Peathead. Here's your wee Glencairn. Look at it. Almost identical proportions, wouldn't you say? Cheers, Frank. Not any obvious taint from the first sip, but I suspect that if you left it in this wood for a wee while, it might have an effect, food safe oil or not. But this wee dram is getting finished, Frank. Cheers to you. I think it's also leaky as well. Let's see what happens. Brilliant stuff. I've been in an Ardbeg strike, says Chris Dunn. I think you should be. Terrific. David Brody's saying, mad when you think what Ardbeg Jackie means to the dram world. It's so sad. Yeah, Jackie's amazing. Jean Kelly's saying, watch out for the short-term wood influence. Rick Johnson is saying, the Peathead Honey Dipper is an amazing gift. Whiskey Wings is saying, sell them. You've got to leave it for 10 years, Aquavite, 10 years in this wee cup. It won't happen. It's actually, look, it's leaky. What? I'm going to hold it. Sorry, Frank. Luckily, I love this thing, and it doesn't matter that it's leaky, but it's, can you see it's dripping out? If I was to hold that there. Yeah, we've got a leak. Tiny leak. It's only a leak if I drink slowly, right? If I drink quickly enough, it's fine. Drum and Dart, good to see you, Drum and Dart. Louis Vuitton email dropping right now. Yeah, they might be annoyed at me. Fantastic. All right. And with that, we conclude quite a lot in a wee vPub session. We've only got one more vPub to go. That's the party time next week with the Bottle Chasers. Gregor will be joining me. Sevy will be joining me. Scotty Monroe will be joining me. Menno will hopefully be stepping forward for a quiz at the end. And I'm going to attempt, I hope, a new game, a brand new game, something that I've built up. If it works live, fine. If it doesn't matter, because we're going to put it out at the Christmas party vPub quiz at the end. It's going to be the Bottle Chasers bringing their festive drams along next week just for a bit of fun, and it should be fun. And then a bit of brutality with a Menno quiz at the end. I'm going to finish off tonight with our quiz at the end. Please stay. Please consider. If you've got nothing else to do, if you have to shuffle off to bed, that's fine. Consider coming back and pick it up in the replay. Quiz at the end tonight does have a theme, but you'll work out the theme very, very quickly. I'm not sure it's going to help you in any way, but it's a wee nod to a producer that we haven't even mentioned or touched upon tonight, but let's say a Christmas-themed producer. It's always multiple choice. It's always optional. You're only playing against yourself. Only share your score if you want to. And remember that you can completely lean on the community who are super knowledgeable. And you might find your way tonight. Come on, it's December. We're getting into Christmas. I don't have control over the quiz next week. I hope there's an opportunity for multiple amounts of you to get a quiz at the end, 10 out of 10, despite the fact that the questions will, as always, get harder as we go through. Willie Buchanan, good to see you, Willie. Well, Roy, I thought it would be hard to make a pig's ear out of a silk purse. I know, but that's what they've been able to do. Danny Hebden is saying, it's a prototype. Okay. Talking about the glass, Danny. It's not, well, I just need to drink the liquid before it disappears. It's also been sitting there dry for about 4 or 5 years since Frank gifted it to me. Just like Frank himself, looks good, but not too useful. Mine's a Spirtle, Roy, says Graham Fraser. And, a Spirtle, is that what you call it? And Jean Kelly is saying, apparently Peathead constructed a Glencairn like shot glass. Got to run Aquavite, says Tom in Arizona. I need to put the steaks on the grill in my short sleeves. You show off. Thank you for joining us, Tom. Nice to have you in, buddy. Drummond Hart is saying, I'm always here, smiling. Sorry, just sometimes I miss you, buddy. Sometimes I miss you. Okay, Whiskey with Molly's putting in his guesses. ABC, ABC, guess, ABC. That's only 9. What are you going to put for the ass hat at the end, buddy? Fantastic. Yeah, I do need a wee... Where is my wee... I always have a wee towel to mop things up. And bizarrely, I don't have one tonight. I'm going to have to use my screen cleaner. Or I could just soak it up straight off the table, right? Good luck, everyone. But here we have the quiz at the end. The last quiz at the end from me for 2024. Next week, we're in the hands of Menno altogether. Good luck, everyone. Question 1. Of which of the following statements are true about Glenfiddich? A. It is the world's best-selling single malt. B. It grew in volume in 2023, relative compared to 2022, of course. Or C. It first distilled on Christmas Day, specifically in 1886. Jimmy Legg is going to see how he gets on with a CCC, CCC, B, CCC. I am going to note, Jimmy Legg, your score tonight. So JL is a CCC, CCC, B, CCC. Okay, and we'll see how your score gets on with that, Mr. Legg. You're checking the theory to see how many C's I've put in. Looks like he's off to a good start, eh? Gene Kelly's saying A, it's the world's best-selling single malt, which George McLeod agrees with. Kyle Teller is saying C for sure, it first distilled on Christmas Day. Big Ed thinks A. Whiskey Mechanic is saying A. Loads and loads and loads and loads of you have saying C. David Owen is suggesting A, B and C. And George McLeod is saying lies, all lies. Laughing out loud. Jimmy Legg is already claiming 1 for 1 on his C. And I can tell you that Jimmy Legg is absolutely right. It did first distill on Christmas Day in 1886. It also became the world's best-selling single malt once more in 2023, and it grew in volume in 2023 also. So all 3 of the first questions were spot on. So Jimmy Legg does indeed get 1 for 1 on his pre-selected guess. Question 2. Which of the following did Glenfiddich owners decide to do independently and are said to be the first to do so? Glenfiddich, quite maverick at times, certainly innovative. Which of these did they decide to do and were said to be the first to do so? A. Blend their own whiskey. B. Market their own single malt, when it was only blends that were being marketed or sold anywhere. Or C. Open a whiskey visitor centre. There are lots of things that Glenfiddich or William Grants have done to be the first company, but I'm asking which of these is the answer. They were the first to blend their own whiskey, they were the first to market their own single malt, or the first to open a whiskey visitor centre. I need to finish this dram because it's pouring out very, very fast, Frank. Whiskey Mechanic, I wonder if that's Rob. I think there is a taint from the quite a woody tannic thing. I'm going to pour it back into. I've got 1 clean glass left. If I pour it back, see if it's taken on any colour. Wow, it really has. You see that? There we go. First time I've used it, big guy. But I've loved it all the time that it's been there. All the time that it's sat on my wee shelf. Whether it was through next door or whether it was here with me. Look at this. There's even a wee note on the bottom. Peathead. Fantastic. Thank you, Bunny. Gene Kelly saying it's a wooden shot glass. That's right. Whiskey Mechanic is saying, no, not Rob, sorry. Similar, well, Rob is known as the Whiskey Mechanic, or he's known as the Mechanic, right? I warned you, I wasn't sure it will hold liquid. You did, buddy, but it's still worth trying. I hope you don't mind. Only my third live stream. Well, I hope it's not your last live stream, Whiskey Mechanic. It's good to have you in. Jimmy Legacy and Frank is high quality. His products, terrific stuff. His products, maybe not so much. Okay, I can tell you that it's Christmas time. Come on. I can tell you that you can take a point for all of these. They were the first to open a whiskey malt distillery tour visitor centre, absolutely. They were the first to market their own single malt in the early 60s. And it's arguable that they were the first large-scale whiskey producer that post-Pattison crash they decided to take things in-house and take care of their own blends as well. Now, other producers were already playing with or doing that, but they were the first one and recorded to do so as part of their strategy, I believe, which is why it's grey. But regardless, if you answered A, B or C for that one, you can take a point, and everyone at this point in time for the Christmas vPub, one of the Christmas vPubs, should be 2 for 2. So we go to question 3, which is which of the following distilleries is the closest neighbour to Glenfiddich? Don't know why there's a wee A in there. Which is the closest neighbour to Glenfiddich distillery? A. Mortlach, B. Glenlivet, or C. Inchgour? Trevor Hedge is telling fibs and saying he's got 0 for 2. That's because you never tried to answer. Trevor, it was a guaranteed point for both of those, so everyone's on 2 for 2. Which of the following distilleries is the closest neighbour to Glenfiddich? Rome was built on 7 hills and Duffton was built on 7 stills. Desi Vleeland is in. Good to see you, Daisy. She's on an A. Steve Atkis, Big Ed, Mike Molasses, Graham Young, Dave the Brave. Good to see you, Dave. Big Ed, good to see you. Alberta Road to Dram. Everyone is saying A. I wonder if you're all following each other by suggesting that it's Mortlach. Kyle Taylor is suggesting it's the Mortlach by saying it's the Beast. Where's Roy in Norway? Good to see you. Roy is on A. Peter Lee saying A. Lachlan McKenzie A. Mike is saying, I guess this one isn't all of the above. No, it cannot be. There can only be one closest neighbour, of course. The majority has nailed it, of course. We're in Duffton here. Inchgour is away up to the east, closer to Banff. Glenlivet is up in, well, it's away up the hill, isn't it? Up the Benrinnes Hill. So I would suggest to you that you're all spot on by sticking in Duffton and going for Mortlach. Mortlach by Diageo. Question 4. At Glenfiddich, copperworks, maturation and coopering are all done on site. What else is also done on site? So this is an awkward thing, and I played with this question a few times. You're just looking for the right combination of what is actually done on site, I think. A. Copperworks, maturation and reduction. B. Maturation, malting and bottling. Or C. Coopering, maturation and malting. So I'm being very, very kind to you here. I'm being super, just trying to put all the questions in your hands. But you just need to have your wits about you. You need to have not had too many drams and think, okay, there's a way through this. I can navigate this by the clumsy way that Roy's put the question together and the way that the answers are structured. Hopefully, even if you don't know that this is the case, you can navigate your way through this. Everybody needs to get a pass mark tonight. What do they achieve on site at Glenfiddich? Coopering, maturation and reduction, maturation, malting and bottling, or coopering, maturation and malting? I don't think they have their maltings. Is saying Lachlan. One Glassman Warner is saying A and maybe C as well. Graham Young is saying A, no malting. James Morgan is saying A then. Copper Dog Samples says Whiskey Wings Mike. I can tell you that so many of you are such knowledgeable folk. Balvenie has on-floor maltings, almost on-site, the immediate neighbour to Glenfiddich. But Glenfiddich itself has no malting, therefore it cannot be B, maturation, malting and bottling. It can't be C, coopering, maturation and malting. But Copperworks are on-site, maturation is on-site, reduction is on-site, despite the fact that bottling is often done elsewhere in Bells Hill. They do have bottling on-site, but they still reduce on-site for the stuff that they bottle off-site. And they also have coopering on-site, but the answer I was looking for was A. The only thing it seems that they are not capable of doing on-site at Glenfiddich is floor malting. 4 out of 4 for so many of you, fantastic. 4 out of 4 for Jean, Peter Box, Big Ed, Kyle Taylor, One Glassman Warner, Bruce Bernard, 4. Black Fennessy, I ducked out of the quiz and watched on catch up the first 15 minutes of tonight's vPub that I missed due to arriving late. Oh man, R.I.P. Foodquig. Aye, let's all just carry that thought with us over the next few days. I'm going to miss the big guy. He was just such a calming, easygoing. Road to Dram is 4 out of 4. Rick Johnson, Daisy, Lachlan, Nicholas, so many of you. Okay, let's roll into the question at the picture question, sorry. Kind of zoomed in a wee bit here. We're looking at a distillery. I'm just going to ask you, is it A, a distillery that begins with Ben, B, a distillery that begins with Bal, or C, a distillery that begins with Ard? What are we looking at here? Is it an Ard, a Bal, or a Ben? Whiskey with Molly saying, what is Copperworks Aquavitae? So, for example, Friuli in Italy, Forsyth in Speyside, anybody that's beating metal to make it copper. So they have their own metal shop, if you like, on site at Glenfiddich, looking after the copper. When you consider that they have more stills than anyone else in the industry, you can understand why that becomes appealing. A begins with Ben, B begins with Bal, C begins with Ard. One Glassman Warner is saying, as seen in the movie. You're correct. There is a movie that uses this as a bit of a backdrop. The heist scene is at this distillery as well. I don't know if that helps anyone. Jimmy Legg is on 2 for 5. Jimmy, my goodness. Really? And Whiskey with Molly is suggesting that it's Bal Blair. And Whiskey Wings Mike is saying Bal Blair. Okay. You're right. It begins with Bal. It's Bal Blair. I thought there was a tiny wee banana skin there because I thought that maybe because it was Glenfiddich, you would think I was maybe going to go Balvenie, but big red chimney there, a very, very specific scene. And if I was to lift that photo just a bit, right out of shot there in the bottom of the frame, you would see the barrels laid up that says Bal Blair. But of course, we're at Bal Blair in the Highlands. I'm going with my pre-answers. Oh, Jimmy, I completely forgot about it when I was distracted by Frank's glass. Let's see how you scored. Let's see how Jimmy Legg scored with his pre-answers, okay? 2, you got a point for that as well. Sorry, everyone. 3, he answered C. He was absolutely wrong on that one. 4, he answered C as well. How did he get on with that? No, he was wrong with that. And C, oh... But he doesn't. He's wrong with that as well. So you're currently on 2 for 5. So that's why you said 2 for 5. Sorry, Jimmy. But you're probably on 5 for 5 if you're playing along. So the monkey, if you like, is on 2 for 5. But you are doing all right. Okay, question 6. The mash tun is usually one of the first items that any distillery tour How many might you see at Glenfiddich? So immediately I'm suggesting that it's a specific scene that you'll witness at Glenfiddich. What is that? A, you will see just one mash tun, but at 16.5 tons, it is Scotland's largest. Or B, you will see two 12-ton mash tuns at Glenfiddich. Both are exact copies of each other. Or C, you will see four 10-ton mash tuns after their expansion in 2020, which at that time made them the biggest distillery in Scotland. One mash tun, 16.5 ton, two mash tuns, 12 ton, four mash tuns at 10 ton. How geeky do things get on the vPub? This is geeky. If you've just arrived into whiskey and you're sitting participating in a quiz at the end and you realise that we're talking about mash tun specifics, the capacity and what makes it unique and things like that, please don't panic. We are not complete. It's more a reflection on me than any of the community and the things that I think about. Rick Johnson is saying, I've not been yet, so I must follow C. Very wise of you, Rick. And the vast majority on question 6 are all going for C, suggesting that Glenfiddich have four 10-ton mash tuns. And they're absolutely right. Spot on. Very, very rare thing. If we look at Macallan are probably about 5 million litres behind them, but they have one single massive mash tun. It's very rare to see any facility that has four mash tuns installed. But Glenfiddich has so many stills that are spread around all over the place that they are set up and have slightly different needs. Question 7. William Grants built Glenfiddich with equipment mostly sourced from where? So Glenfiddich was built in 1886. Relatively new distillery compared to most. But we want to know, where did Willie Grant get his kit from? Did he buy it from A, another Speyside distillery, B, a Duffton brewery, or C, Forsyths of Rothes? Ben, a good example of a copperworks or coppersmiths. Where did Willie Grant source his kit? Graham Fraser is saying, Glenfiddich just had one mash tun when I first visited in the 1990s. My goodness, if we could shake all the knowledge in that wee head of yours, Graham, and share it for everyone, it'd be quite amazing. You do a very good job, buddy. Drip by drip. It was great to have you. Great to have you. Where did Willie Grant get all his kit? A, another Speyside distillery, B, a Duffton brewery, or C, Forsyths of Rothes? I can tell you that. I need the answers to come in. Chris Dunn is saying A. Glenn B is also saying A. Gabriel Wilding is asking A. Where's Roy? Steve Atkiss, Road to Dram. Jimmy Jazz, all wrong. David Owen, wrong. Jimmy Legg saying Cardew, wasn't it? You canny little show off, Jimmy Legg. Bruce Bernard is saying A. Graham Fraser is saying A. So, Graham Fraser is saying A. Jimmy Legg is suggesting it was Cardew, which is another Speyside distillery. And Whiskey with Molly is then going, A then. Graham Young is now saying A. Follow the crowd. Follow my prompts. It's Christmas. Come on, I'm trying to do my best. I want everyone to have the highest score you can possibly have before Menno takes it over. Willie Grant took his equipment from Elizabeth Cummings at Cardew Distillery. He bought as much kit as he could from her in order to establish a Glenfiddich distillery. Back in 1885 he bought all the kit. £120 he paid, famously, from Cardew. Question 8. Grant's brand. Standfast was once a famous William Grant's blend. How did it get its name? Standfast. How did it get its name? A. They inherited Standfast from a grocer blender. B. Standfast is the motto of Clan Grant. Or C. It was a tribute to the robust weathering of the Pattison crash. Where did Standfast come from as a blend name? They inherited it from a grocer or blender. B, it's the motto of Clan Grant. Or C, it was a tribute to the robust weathering of the Pattison crash. Pattison crash happened in the last couple of years of the 19th century, where whiskey was being oversold to the point of cheatery, fakery. Fernando's saying, don't know this one, but he's going to go for B. He's going to follow the crowd. Same as David Owen following the crowd, going for B. I can tell you that Standfast is absolutely the motto of Clan Grant, which is where they got the name for Grant's blend. Unfortunately, this is long gone now. I think Standfast should still very much be a blend today, but it is not. I think Standfast is seen as being quite old-fashioned or something, but I think it could be brought back to life again as a modern, I think it's a cool name, Standfast. If you look at the left here, there's an old weathered bottle, a much more pristine one on the right, but that weathered bottle image is taken from a Whisky Exchange bottle that you can buy today for 80 quid. Be a nice wee bit of history to have. However, don't rush and pay 80 quid for it. Do if you want it for Christmas, of course, but you'd pick up this at auction for much cheaper than that. Anybody that's interested in exploring whisky history would do worse than to explore some of the really affordable old ancient blends that you can still get out there. Most of them perfectly drinkable too. Look at fill level, look at bottle condition. Don't expect them to be brilliant. Some of them can be rather charming. Question 9. Which of these clever marketing ploys is attributed to Glenfiddich? I'm going to give you 3 marketing ploys, and I'm looking for which one was attributed to Glenfiddich specifically. A. They trained parrots to repeat the phrase, "Drink Glenfiddich," and they gifted these parrots to pubs. B. They offered free bottles to production companies filled with coloured wattles as branded TV props. Or C. They made the first motion picture advertisement for their own product. Which of these clever marketing ploys is attributed to Glenfiddich? Parrots shouting, "Drink Glenfiddich" in the pub, free branded bottles of Glenfiddich but filled with coloured water, or C, the first motion picture advertisement. Mike Molasses is saying, someone did the parrot thing. Lachlan is saying, C, was that yours? Hilarious, and I hope it's right. Saying A, training parrots to repeat "Drink Glenfiddich" and gifting them to pubs. It's all over the place. Just as question 9 should be, something to split the crowd, filled with coloured water. That's Dalmore, says Jimmy Lake. Fernando saying switch to B. B sounds reasonable, says Warner. Graham Fraser is saying B. Jimmy Jazz saying B. Scott Allen is saying B as well. Danny Hebbington B. Gene Kelly B. C. Vatkis is saying B, changing it. James Morgan is saying, okay, Graham, B too. If you're going to follow the crowd, follow Graham Fraser. Well, have you been right? There's a wee banana skin here. Absolutely, there was a marketing ploy about training parrots to say a very specific phrase and then gifting them to pubs. but that was the Pattison brothers. That was not Glenfiddich. Making the first motion picture advertisement for whiskey. It wasn't actually the first, but it was certainly one of the first. But it was also Dewar's, as Lachlan pointed out. I was looking tonight for offering free bottles of prop whiskey filled with coloured water to production companies, TV-specific production companies in the 1960s. So there was product placement of Grant's blends everywhere, and it was very, very successful for them. Very, very clever. So with one question left to go, it is the asshat. How are we doing? 7 out of 9 for Whiskey with Molly Bennett. You're behind tonight, buddy. So how did we get on while you're all doing that with Jimmy's questions? I've forgotten again, haven't I? Let's go back to... We need to go all the way back to 6, right? How did Jimmy get on? He answered C for this, and he was correct for that one. Wow. He answered B for that. His only deviation. He went for B for this one, and he was wrong. And then he answered C for the next 3. So let's see how we got on. That's wrong. And question 9 is wrong. So Jimmy, you're not doing too well with your guesswork. You're better applying some thought and educated guesswork, because you're currently on 3 for 9. I hope you agree. 9 out of 9 for Sugar Kitty, 9 out of 9 for Gino Cumo. Gino, you are in tonight. Good to see you, buddy. Gabriel Wilding on a 9 out of 9. Daisy's on a 9. Graham Fraser, of course, on a 9. Gene Kelly on a 9. Peter Box is on a 9. Good to see you, Peter. Fantastic score. 9 out of 9 for Bruce. 9 out of 9 for Graham Young. A few of you, like Warner, Steve Atkiss, David Owen, Jimmy Jazz, and Danny Hebbington, all enjoying an 8. Sugar Kitty is also on a 9 out of 9. Fantastic. To dare is to do, says Jimmy Legg. Let's do it then, Jimmy. Let's do it. Question 10, right at the end. Glenfiddich's experimental series began in 2016 with the IPA experiment and Project XX, or Project 20 actually. How many editions has there been in total? How many experimental series editions has Glenfiddich released? I made a note of this, and I'll have to find the note so that I can relay what they are to you. I'm going to give you 3 options here. A, the same as the amount of operational Scotch malt distilleries on Islay. B, the same as the amount of operational Scotch malt distilleries owned by Inverhouse. Or C, the same as the number of operational Scotch malt distilleries beginning with the letter K. The asshat is always a belligerent, awful, putrid question where it's stupid, you've got to guess, you've got to know the answer to 2 things. To dare is to do, as Jimmy said. So let's see you all do this. Second last quiz of the year. The last quiz that I'll deliver. The last quiz that I'll make for 2024. Judge me upon it, yes. They're XX, they're 20. Gene Kelly saying is great. Glad you enjoyed it, Gene. I've had their Fire and Cane. I've had their XX. I've had their IP experiment. I didn't get on with it. I didn't like it too much. I think the Project 20 was a wee bit better. Steve Atkiss is admitting a Scooby. I have not. Steve does not have a Scooby-Doo. He's without a clue. Everybody's going for C. Now, I think what's happening is Graham Fraser holds off. And he answers quite late, I think, in order not to lead the crowd. So maybe what we have to do one time is do a Graham Fraser specific quiz so that he's tempted to get his answer in early, where all the questions will be hard, and just see how much of the crowd actually follow him. Okay, everyone. The asshat question, deliberately awkward. How many experimental series has Glenfiddich released since the originals in 2016? I can tell you that the number of operational Scotch malt distilleries on Islay numbers 10. The number of operational Scotch malt distilleries owned by Inverhouse is 5. The number of operational Scotch malt distilleries beginning with the letter K is 5 also. So if I'm being generous to you, if you've answered B or C, both the same, could that be the case? Could that be right? Absolutely, it's correct. I was looking for 5. The experimental series began with the IP experiment Project 20, and it's also since taken up Fire and Cane, as I mentioned, Winter Storm, and the most recent one, Orchard Experiment. How many of you answered B and C to get a 10? Come on, come on. Daisy is celebrating a 10. Congratulations, Daisy Vleeland in the Netherlands. Wonderful stuff. Gino Cumeau has got a 10 out of 10 in Canada. Fantastic. Graham Fraser has got a 10 out of 10 as well. Of course he has. Nailed it. Jean Kelly is celebrating a 10 out of 10. Bruce Bernard is celebrating a 10 out of 10. Gabriel Welding, it must be Christmas. It must be Christmas. Gabriel Welding, 10 out of 10. Sugar Kitty, 10 out of 10. Can I be fair? All these names I'm reading out, I'm sure it's not 10 out of 10s for the first time. Graham Young celebrating a 10 out of 10. Fernando, Peter Box, everybody going nuts, loving it. James Morgan is saying, Merry Christmas, Roy, but I got a 9 out of 10. It's okay. Merry Christmas, James Morgan, buddy. It's wonderful to have you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being kind to me, wishing me a Merry Christmas. Danny Hebbington is saying, well done to the 10 out of 10s, and he's applauding. I suspect maybe he didn't manage it tonight. Well done, all of you, just for hanging out with me until the end. Until the dying embers are all that remains. The core of the community, the diehards, the challenging ones, the ones that like a quiz, the ones that like a wee challenge or a bit of fun, whatever it is. We'll always close out with a wee quiz at the end. I wouldn't have it any other way. So I don't know what you think about my picks for tonight, whether it was moments, whether it was my wooden spoon controversy, whether it was my independent bottlers, my producers, whether it was my pick for Whiskey of the Year. What do you think? Do you know how you can help? For whatever topic I've discussed tonight, whatever category I've put nominations forward and winners, put your own underneath. Why? Because I want to hear it, but more than anything, the comments underneath this video is just full of gold for the community to mine. I have loved this from a fellow enthusiast who bought it with their own money. It means so much. Sometimes other people chime in to back you up, to give you a like to your comment, to reply to your comment and say, I agree. This is consensus that happens, and this is how we can help each other. I'm going to top up my wee pour of my Whiskey of the Year, which is not only a surprise to a lot of you, it's actually a surprise to me too. But I think it's definitely, absolutely deserving. Do not judge it against the high quality of the other products that's come from this distillery. Judge it against the quality of the products that's come from its peers. And at £55, there has not been an execution from a new distillery as well done as Ardnahoe. And that is a weighty thing to say, I understand. Cheers. Gene Kelly, couldn't ask for a better ending to 2024. We all owe a huge debt of gratitude to you for what you've created. Gene, that's very, very kind words, but you're the guys that bring it week to week. And also remember, it's not the last. Next week is the last. Lachlan is saying, thanks, Roy Aquaviti. Have a good evening, all. Thank you for being here again, Lachlan. Graham Fraser is saying, cheers, Aquaviti and fellow barflies. Santa emoji, brilliant. Rick Johnson is saying, thanks for sharing your good times, Roy. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing Frank's wooden spoon for the next year's award. Graham Young is saying, such a gem-packed vPub. Loved it, Aquaviti. The absolute best of time well wasted. I love that sentiment. It's good to waste time well. It's a skill, even, Graham, and you know it. Gino Cumeau, good to see you, buddy. Cheers, Roy, for another great vPub. David Owen is saying, awesome vPub, Roy, it was fun. Pete Ed Frank saying, and with that, I'm calling it a day. Hitting the sack. Thanks, as always, for organising Aquaviti. I warned you, I wasn't sure the Glencairn was usable. To all of you, see you next time. I love you, big guy, I love you. And I love the Glencairn even more after tonight. Jimmy Legg is saying, I don't like to agree with you, but that Ardnahoe choice is a good one. Well done, sir. It was agonised over for a long time, Jimmy, but we got there, and I have to just stand by my convictions, and I have to justify it. However, if I get a Jimmy Leg endorsement, there's a lot of weight in that. Cheers to you, buddy. Thanks for your generous dram. Thanks for your support over the years. Thank you so much, Jimmy Leg. Fernando saying, fantastic vPub. Great talk as always. Thanks, Roy. Thank you, Fernando, for being here. Whiskey Throttle Daniel is saying, Aquaviti. Sorry, I cut that short, Fernando. And dear Barflies, cheers and good night, everyone. See you next week. Daniel Whiskey Throttle is saying, Aquaviti, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being back here again, Daniel. Road to Drama saying, good night, everyone. Thank you, Roy. Great vPub. Mike Melissa saying, Menno is Krampus to Aquaviti's Santa. he's going to be the Grinch next week, isn't he? Where's Roy? Cheers, Aquaviti. You're doing well. Roy, you're doing well too, buddy. Will I see you in 2025? I hope so. Okay, as we wrap up my last vPub of 2024, but next week I will host the community vPub for 2024. It's going to be Sevi, Gregor, myself, Scotty, Menno. I'm still working out whether I should invite other folk in to play along, but I've got an idea. I've got a structure to keep it compact and things. It's on the 19th, a week from tonight, the usual Thursday slot, and it will be the last vPub of 2024 unless you're a patron. If you're a supporter, a patron, I'm looking to try and schedule a wee session for us on Sunday the 29th of December to see out Christmas holidays, just for us, just for patrons. And then I'll see everyone back here probably on the 9th, but there's an outside chance it might be the 16th of January before things kick off again. If you're following me on social media, Patreon or YouTube or wherever it may be, just look out for that and I'll make an announcement of when things kick off in the new year. Or if it's fixed by next week, I'll obviously announce that and share it with you all next week. Until then, I can't wait to hang out with you then. I'm looking forward to it as always. But in the meantime, I'll raise this glass and thank you all for your support. Remind you all that you're dearly loved and look forward to hanging out with you again next week. Till then, Slanchiva Barflies. Cheers.